Where was I? All right, let's blast off. I have inside tea. The Dems were denied a table at the rally. That's funny, but also that makes sense. Did you start early today? Yes, I did. All right. Where was I? Let's blast off. I started after a day of not being live, and instantly I'm like, my brain is already fried. 12 minutes in, it's crazy. Okay. Let's go viral on TikTok. Trump tariff error. Bum LA claims he can't send back Maryland resident defying SCOTUS order. So there's also that. Terrifying things are happening. I'll be honest with you. Trump told Bukele American citizens are next. I know he also said that. Trump claims U.S. citizens are next to deport. Dude, it is. Oh yeah, Josh Shapiro, PA Gov Mansion arson on early after a day off. Assume 9/11 too happened. Yeah. Bukele. El Salvador is our Auschwitz. Yes, in the most American way. In the most American way possible. We are outsourcing our Auschwitz. I guess Germans kind of did that too, but without like actually conquering additional territory for living room for living room purposes. Exemptions. Let's do it. All right, let's blast off. We need to tariff the concentration camp industry and bring those jobs back home. Yeah. I mean, we're doing it. We're doing the damn thing. We're doing some crazy stuff. Yeah. Meanwhile, ICE arrested ICE black bagged another student protester, by the way. That also just happened. I wish Trump would deport me to a prison in El Salvador so I can show these crybaby libtards that it's not a big deal. Okay, good one, dude. Have you seen the story on the team with the Trump assassination plot? Just joined. Forgive me if you've already mentioned it. Wait, what? No, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, here, let's blast this off and then we'll talk about the new student that they just black bagged as well. Yeah, a Nazi tried to kill Trump. Wait, what? When? When did that happen? Oh, is it the kid that killed his parents? Is that the one? I briefly saw something, but I didn't. Like 2 days ago, he had a plot to do it, killed his parents first. Yeah, okay, yeah. I heard that. I didn't even pay attention to it. Like I said, dude, this is the new me. When I take a day off, I don't even look at the news. You know what I mean? It's crazy. But yeah, we're gonna do the oval. We're gonna do the oval back and forth, all up and down, because there's a lot to talk about here with the Bukele meeting, where Donald Trump went nutty mode with President Bukele of El Salvador. As you guys know, Nayib Bukele is probably the worst Palestinian descent person out there. Like literally one of the worst, if not the worst. I would say it's like him and fucking son of Hamas, like honorary, no longer Palestinians. Like people get mad at like DJ Khaled for not really saying anything about Palestine or doing much about Palestine, but like this guy straight up is the worst. Like it's him, Richard Hanania, but he is the worst, I think. As far as like Nayib Bukele goes, he started off relatively progressive, focusing on like rehabilitation over incarceration, and then very quickly became like a cryptocurrency guy who was willing to use El Salvador as a fleshlight for Western interests, billionaires, things like that. He is a horrible, monstrous piece of shit. He set up the CCOT facility for anti-terrorism. And since then, there's speculation that he also worked with some of the MS-13 leadership and simultaneously decided to go on this like massive surveillance regime, massive police state regime, where his goons will go up to any street vendor or any village in the middle of the night and just black bag people and do dragnets and then claim that they're all MS-13. And then, 300 people at a time will go and sit in front of a judge who's wearing a balaclava and decide that they're all MS-13, all 300 of them. And then they get disappeared into CCOT where they're tortured. no due process, no care or consideration for human rights. It's truly terrifying. No, it's not like America. It's beyond America, okay? It's a little bit worse. Our American prison system is pretty bad, but at least the things that happen in the buildup to the American prison system are, there's some semblance of logic and some semblance of order. Yeah, they arrested like 2% of the population. Is beyond USA. Salvi here. I still can't believe how brainwashed he's got former FMLN members to vote for him. I have friends whose parents flew home to vote for him. Yeah, a lot of the Salvadorans, they like him. In Latin America, I feel like there's a which way Western man moment, and all the reactionary right wingers, they like Bukele, and all of the leftist, socialist adjacent Latin American countries are not too fond of him. So FMLN is the leftist party of El Salvador. I know, but I'm saying that like he has been able to win a lot of favor amongst all Salvadorans. They're not even deporting. They're sending people to concentration camps. These people can't even just go live in another country. Yeah, that's the other side of this. It is pretty terrifying. And yeah, I mean that's the brief little background on Nayib Bukele, right? That's the brief background on Nayib Bukele. Very far right, very reactionary. Interestingly enough, Donald Trump used to shit on Bukele a lot and would claim that like Nayib Bukele was also dumping his asylum, dumping his own MS-13 gang members directly into the United States of America. But I guess they've patched that up. They've patched their relationship seemingly as he is using the CCOT facility as a slave labor concentration camp that we have outsourced to El Salvador. Truly horrifying stuff that's taking place here. Yeah, this is the especially horrifying part of this. Before the pool entered, this exchange was captured on the El Salvador government's live stream. Trump endorses sending homegrown U.S. prisoners to El Salvador, meaning American citizens to notorious foreign prisons.
Homegrowns are next. The homegrown's built. You got to build about 5 more places.
Yeah, we've got space.
All right.
He says the homegrown ones are next. You guys built about 5 more spaces. He goes, yeah, we got space. It's not a Twitter video issue. This is not supposed to be live, chat. This is a hot mic. This is a hot mic. Okay. This is not. We were not supposed to hear this. Before, as Jonathan Lemire, co-host of the Morning Show, says, this is before the pool entered. This exchange was captured on the El Salvador government's live stream. Trump endorses sending homegrown U.S. prisoners to El Salvador, meaning the American citizens to notorious foreign prisons. And it's not even just a hot mic. I believe this is something that the Trump administration has talked about already. It's something that Bukele has talked about already. So that's it. To be fair, he said it before. He said it shortly thereafter in the press pool too. Yeah. It's not something that they're hiding. Sure. Here's a question. Are you deporting Are you considered deporting American citizens to El Salvador? Trump says, yeah, that includes them. You think they're a special type of people or something?
Open to deporting individuals that aren't foreign aliens but are criminals to El Salvador. Does that include potentially U.S.?
People on Twitter are already defending it. We're so fucking cooked. Yeah. I mean, they're Nazis. There's not really anything else I can say about that. That's it. It's here. It's happening. They're fucking fascists. They're really horny for this kind of violence. They don't really consider that this kind of violence may actually impact them in the long run. I don't know. This is every single day that goes by. Like, I joke about it being Burger Reich or whatever, but like, it's not really a joke. These guys are actually straightforward, blood-curdling fascists. They are baying for blood. They want it. They're excited at the prospect for this kind of structure to become legally calcified. They want to test the boundaries. They're testing the boundaries right now in terms of like what they can get away with. They've already eradicated any sort of mechanism of pushback. There's not a lot of work you can get. Like, one of the most important and yet like somewhat quiet actions that the Trump administration took was against law firms. Okay. And we obviously covered it here, but there wasn't like that much anger or resentment towards this, partially because it's like there's outrage fatigue. It's impossible to pay attention to all the things that they're doing. But the reason why it was very significant, the reason why Donald Trump's attacks against law firms was very significant is because they basically came in and said, if you don't do pro bono work for us, we won't let you into federal buildings. And if you can't go into a federal building, you can't practice law. Like, you can't talk to your clients. Like, they basically said, you have to, you can't go against us. There are very few law firms that are still capable or interested in fighting back against them, against this government. Please stop. I don't care about the CCOT facility thing right now, okay? I know. This is like...
I just saw this video.
Are these bodies and blood? I know. It's just the CCOT facility. Does it have bodies and blood? Is that what it is? Once again, eyes on the prize here. You guys always hyper-focus. Liberals have this fundamental inability to understand larger schemes that are happening in broad daylight, where they have to focus on like some kind of conspiratorial aspect to all of this, okay? Please stop. Lock in. I don't even know if that is real. I don't even know if they're just like fucking killing people, assassinating them, and just like dumping them into a mass grave in the way that people are talking about. But I do know that they are doing horrifying torture. We know that already. We've seen it. It's not like they're hiding that part of it. Bro, pay attention on taxes on USA law firms. Regular fold. Folk don't know the importance. Anyway. But why send criminals to another country? I thought our prisons were for profit and want as many as possible. I think that the CCOT alignment is going to work where Eric Prince, from what I've read, Eric Prince Academy, right? Like private mercenaries are going to take over some of the logistics from the Department of Homeland Security. That's number one. Number two, they're most likely going to do a joint partnership with American corporations, I suspect, like American private prison corporations, where they can open up these facilities or manage these facilities, these concentration camps, for pennies on the dollar, as opposed to having them operate on U.S. soil, where there are at least some kind of constitutional hurdles that they have to avoid. So I suspect that they will utilize they'll utilize El Salvador, purchase the land, engage in a land lease agreement with the Salvadoran government, and it will still be like, American private prison corporations will make money off of this, I suspect. By sending them to another country, it becomes foreign policy too. That's what Trump has started saying. Yeah. There's a bunch of reasons as to why sending them to El Salvador is a benefit for a fascist administration like this, and we're seeing it. One of the benefits from their perspective is, well, we can't return them, even when the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, says you have to return this person. You were not supposed to send this person. This person is an active withdrawal, as in due process kicked in. He went through the court system. The American government literally cleared this Maryland resident cleared a higher standard of proof to get a withdrawal to El Salvador, as in the asylum application beyond that is easier to prove. It is harder to prove a withdrawal to El Salvador than it is to get an asylum application through. Okay? That's precisely the reason why the Supreme Court gave a unanimous decision on the facilitation of the return of this withholding. Sorry. Thank you, Jay Mershon. Like, there are different mechanisms to defend yourself against, like, deportation. A withholding of removal to El Salvador, which is where he's from, is a de facto harder to prove in courts than getting an asylum application done. And it means de facto that, like, you're not supposed to remove this person. You're not supposed to deport this person. Or even if this person was to, I don't know, do something heinous, right? Like a deportable crime, they would not be able to deport him to El Salvador. They would deport him somewhere else. But this person never did that, for the record. He's not a part of any gang. He has, as far as I understand, there's no crime that he's committed. And yet the actual crime that was committed in this process was done by the government, which then admitted to the wrongdoing. Anyway, let's continue with this, and then we'll do...
Citizens fully naturalized American.
If they're criminals and if they hit people with baseball bats over their head that happen to be 90 years old, and if they rape 87-year-old women in Coney Island, Brooklyn? Yeah, that includes them. What, do you think there's a special category of person? They're as bad as anybody that comes in. We have.
With a simple administrative error, the U.S. now has wholesale SCOTUS approval to illegally detain and deport any U.S. citizen that they want. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, Donald Trump is now entertaining the notion of kidnapping, black bagging, and shipping off American natural-born U.S. citizens to a different country. This is new. This is new territory. A lot of the stuff that they're doing is new territory, for the record. Straw man argument too strong. It's not even a straw man. There is no straw man that he's engaging in. He just like made up a couple cases that are gruesome in his mind and said, yeah, we're going to ship those guys off to El Salvador. Okay, we're going to ship those guys off to the El Salvador torture slave facility. Aaron Rupar spread propaganda against Bangladesh. Why are you following him? I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about, but follow policing Aaron Rupar is pretty funny. Yeah, he just is a compiler of all these clips. Yes, I didn't even know that was a thing that he had done, but that's pretty funny. I don't agree with Aaron Rupar. I follow him because he does this. He clips stuff. That's all he's good for. Aren't people just going to revolt if this admin goes full fascist like this? I don't know. I don't think so. Especially on this stuff. On the deportation stuff, I think a lot of people are utterly oblivious. They are utterly oblivious to the actions that this administration is taking. And I think on the Israel stuff, on the deportation stuff, which goes hand in hand, it is far more consequential than the fucking trade wars, okay? And this isn't to say that, like, the tariffs and the exemptions are not consequential. It's far more consequential than the Doge cuts, which isn't to say that those Doge cuts aren't consequential. But this, ironically enough, this thing that not enough people are paying attention to is far more significant for our future. Because the reality of the matter is, you do the Doge cuts, people revolt, okay? People rise up. Let's say they fire every federal employee, right? And then the people go, what the fuck are you doing? You just fired every single person. How dare you? You start protesting in the street. His administration comes in and black bags key leadership in those protests, and they ship him off to El Salvador. Boom. All of a sudden, there's nothing. You can't do anything. There's no free speech anymore at this point. There's no due process anymore at this point. And when you get deported to the CCOT facility, you have no way of return. So it doesn't even matter. It is one of due process and First Amendment rights are the most consequential remaining, the most consequential remaining protections that we have that they are actively destroying. And ironically, the sad state of affairs is that many of these people are either completely oblivious to this stuff. I've been ringing the alarm bells on this for quite a while now. And I think that most Americans are completely either A, oblivious to this shit, or B, perhaps even worse than being oblivious, the ones who are knowledgeable about what's going on here are in support of it. They are championing it. It's a truly terrifying predicament.
If the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago. And they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You know, you have no credibility. Please go ahead.
How many illegal criminals are you planning?
Yeah. You said that if SCOTUS says someone needed to be returned, you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago. Why don't you say, isn't it wonderful we're keeping criminals out of the country? Like, that's his reaction to this is, you are in violation of the Supreme Court orders. Here, we'll just watch the full thing. But basically, the question is, Mr. President, you are directly in violation of the Supreme Court orders. What do you have to say about this? And his response is, it's great. It's great that we're keeping terrorists out of this country. By the way, for the record, there is no evidence whatsoever. There's only evidence to the contrary, okay, of this wrongly deported U.S. man, this Maryland resident, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. There is no evidence whatsoever that he's in MS-13. There's only evidence to suggest that he is directly in the crosshairs of MS-13. And yet, and this is something that the federal government has also personally acknowledged. And yet they still, on the one hand, say he's MS-13, and then also on the other hand, say there's no way we can bring him back.
With you, because you want to stop crime, and so do we. And it's very, very effective. And I want to just say hello to the people of El Salvador and say they have one hell of a president. Okay, and I mean that, and I know him well. I know him as a very young man, Marco, even younger than you. You know, he started pretty young at heart. But I want to thank you for the great job you're doing. I appreciate it.
Well, it's an honor to be here in the Oval Office with the President and leader of the free world. We're very happy, and we're very eager to help. We know that you have a crime problem, a terrorism problem that you need help with. And we're a small country, but if we can help, we will do it. And we actually turned the murder capital of the world, that was the journalists call it, right? Murder capital of the world, into the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And, you know, sometimes they say that we imprisoned thousands. I like to say that we actually liberated millions. So, you know, like,
It's very good. Who gave him that line? Do you think I can use that?
Yes. And in fact, Mr. President, you have 350 million people to liberate.
Yes.
But to liberate 350 million people, you have to imprison some. You know, that's the way it works, right? You cannot just, you know, free the criminals and think crime is going to go down magically. You have to imprison them so you can liberate 350 million Americans that are asking for the end of crime and the end of terrorism. And it can be done. I mean, you're doing it already. And I'm sure that people have seen the change.
Why is he sucking Trump/America's boot? What do you mean? This is the dream for him. Everybody knows that if you want to have a permanent dictatorship till the end of time, especially in a Latin American country, you have to be America's dog. That's how you get all the benefits. You get money, you get political support. That's it. These are all of his wishes being realized in broad daylight in real time. Bukele has been able to generate a lot of goodwill, partially as a consequence of how violent MS-13 was, and how much people were, you know, how much people just could not deal with the impact of MS-13's violence, and basically turned his police apparatus into a gang that is even more powerful than MS-13, partially while collaborating with MS-13, potentially collaborating with MS-13 as well. This is the suspicion that people have.
In the streets, a long way to go because you're just initiating your second term, but it's clear that, you know, with the numbers.
What is this? Oh my God, you guys shit on Bukele way too much. Yeah, he's authoritarian, but you guys don't shit on Xi Jinping like this. Brother, what the fuck are you talking about? What kind of industrial policy has Nayib Bukele implemented in El Salvador? Like, what do you mean? He's just like a straightforward right-wing dipshit fascist. Like, that's it. His claim to fame here is basically building slave labor prisons and holding people unjustifiably in said slave labor prisons, like no due process whatsoever. Virtually every single humanitarian organization has been writing extensively about the CCOT facility and how horrifying it is. I think the horrifying aspect of CCOT in and of itself is obvious to everyone, right? You either get put into the slammer where you have no daylight, you don't see any light whatsoever, you're in pitch black darkness, isolated from everybody else, or when you're not, when you're in general population, you're under constant surveillance and constant light where you can't even sleep. Okay, sleep deprivation is the norm in these facilities. But outside of that, you have very little opportunity to speak with the outside world, very little opportunity to speak with your lawyers, and no way to combat an unjustifiable imprisonment. You don't have to sympathize with MS-13 in this process. You have to recognize that, one, these are torture facilities, okay? And two, more importantly than the fact that these are torture facilities, the people that are being put into these torture facilities, it's because Hassan can't relate. He never went when crime was rampant. Oh, yeah. He got rid of crime. I don't know. You think you understand how bad it was? Chatters, please, for the love of Christ and all things holy, listen to my words, okay? I'm explaining why people still believe in Bukele. And I'm also telling you how fucking stupid it is to make the assumption that crime is gone now. It's done in El Salvador. It doesn't exist. When you got the government doing the fucking crime. What will it take for one of your fucking family members to get black bagged and falsely considered to be MS-13 for you to go, okay, maybe this wasn't the best idea? He imprisoned 2% of the fucking population, dude. What are we talking about? There's already plenty of evidence to show that his police force goes in. Yeah, that's why I said my family's from El Salvador. Yes, dumb fuck. That's why I said, what will it take when one of your family members gets fucking black bagged and sent to CCOT and you know that they're not a part of MS-13? Well, is that when you will comprehend what is happening? I'm not saying the situation was better in the past. I'm not saying that at all. I'm simply stating that the heavy-handed nature of these apprehensions and the lack of due process and the torturous conditions within the facilities implies that the criminal leadership has exchanged hands. It went from MS-13 to fucking Nayib Bukele. Salvadoran that studies violence here. First of all, double fuck Bukele forever and always. And I doubt Kilmer is dead, despite what TikTok believes. And if he is, then it was the state that killed him. People overlooked that in Sika, rival gangs are incarcerated next to each other. And there has not, to my knowledge, been an issue with that. Instead, the state has been responsible for killing and torturing people. Yeah. There's also suspicion that Bukele himself, in a deal not dissimilar to like previous deals that Mexican leadership have done with the cartels, most likely also cut a separate side deal with MS-13 as well, which is part of the reason why he wanted the American MS-13 leadership that was apprehended to be sent expeditiously to El Salvador before they were able to make public statements about the collaborative nature of MS-13 and Nayib Bukele. I feel like gang unity might arise because of such horrific treatment. I mean, there's not really much you can do. It's a concentration camp. Yeah. This is the size of El Salvador overlaid over Dallas, Texas. Why would we send anyone there besides nefarious reasons? Is Guantanamo, without having to talk to Cuba, it's ideal for Trump? Exactly. You think we don't have facilities to deal with this shit? Of course we do. It's just this way you get to wash your hands over the death camp happening on U.S. soil. Did you not see that I said only the worst are sent to CCOT and the rest focus on rehab? CCOT is the worst? No, you're wrong. You're just, I think you're delusional. You're absolutely wrong. No, it's not the worst of the worst that are sent to CCOT, dumb fuck. What are you talking about? That's the entire problem here. No, it's random people, random street vendors, for example. It's whoever the fuck the police decide is MS-13, and there's no due process. That's kind of the whole problem here happening in America as well. You're just making shit up. No, Nayib Bukele initially wanted to focus on rehabilitation, focus on solving the underlying economic problems where crime manifests. That's true. That is how Nayib Bukele actually rose to power, and then very quickly was like, yeah, fuck all that. They literally grab people for tattoos, even if it's not MS-13 related tattoos. They grab people for being street vendors if they've been threatened by MS-13. It has nothing to do with actual MS-13 gang activity. The idea that it's like the most rugged of the MS-13 criminals that are being shipped into the facility is wrong. And that is just for the Salvadorans. Like, we're not even talking about the people that we've shipped over there. Okay? It's outlined in this article. El Salvador named one of the world's safest countries. At what cost? El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele declared an initial month-long state of emergency in March 2022 due to heightened gang violence and a wave of murders, according to the Human Rights United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. So far, the state of emergency has been renewed 30 times, the latest of which was announced by the Salvadoran Legislative Assembly on October 4th. To date, this tool has allowed 604 days without homicides and the arrest of more than 82,000 people linked to gangs. In addition, it has positioned the country among the safest in the world. The state of emergency suspended several Salvadoran rights and freedoms as per the OAS. 1. Right of assembly, freedom of association, right to be informed of the reasons for detention, inviolability of correspondence and telecommunications. Regardless, the entity does recognize a constant decrease in homicide cases, with the rate per 100,000 people going from 21.2 in 2020 to 4.9 in 2023. Okay? The alleged human rights violations. El Salvador has been called out for massive human rights violations, including thousands of arbitrary detentions and violations of due process, as well as torture and ill treatment, according to Amnesty International. In a report published on December 2023, the organization detailed a rise in systematic detentions, forced disappearances, and instances of torture since the introduction of the state of emergency. There's also suspicion that he most likely did a secret deal with MS-13. The other suspicion also is that the government is not correctly clocking the murders as well. They're just not they're just not reporting the murders potentially and the disappearances to artificially lower the fucking murder rate as well. And it's been successful in terms of propaganda. It's been successful. The remaining Salvadoran population that isn't imprisoned love it. They love him and they love this. That's how terrifying the MS-13 crime situation was to begin with. Okay? So you're just going to speculate? No, there's plenty of evidence as to why there is a secret side deal that he wait, hold on 1 second. I just got to do something here. Okay. Washington Post covered it as well. Bukele agreed to accept hundreds of suspected gang members living in the United States. In return, he wanted the U.S. to send him less than a dozen MS-13 gang members in U.S. custody. Why was he so intent on getting the MS-13 guys? Washington Post reports. Some Salvadoran analysts believe Bukele wants the gang leaders back so they won't testify about his government's involvement with them and potentially put him in legal trouble. If these returns of Salvadoran gang members continue, it takes away the possibility that the U.S. judicial system will open a case against Bukele for negotiations and agreement. An anthropologist who has studied the gangs. Bukele has denied making deals with gangs. Such negotiations by his predecessors were highly unpopular domestically. A lot of ultra-conservative people and even non-conservative people in El Salvador like Bukele. They think he has been able to put a dent in the crime that MS-13 is engaged in. And to a certain degree, it has been successful. The problem here, however, is not that the incredible torture prison scheme that he has created is horrifying in and of itself. The issue also is that they're grabbing random people off the street with no due process. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, if you become the crime, if the government becomes the MS-13 gang, then yeah, technically there is no crime because it's a fucking police state. Operational autonomy. Just curious, what kind of deal would he make with MS-13? What does MS-13 get? Yeah, this is similar to what narco politics looks like in Mexico, as well as the chatter correctly points out. Operational autonomy and legal immunity in some cases, as long as they stay within government boundaries. Don't fuck up the bag too much. Then why are his approval ratings so high? I don't know. Think about the United States of America. Why? The United States of America is an even better analog to this because the rates of crime, specifically violent crime, are nowhere near as high as El Salvador. And yet the people were made to believe that there is like an undocumented migrant crime panic that has taken place in this country, and therefore are totally fine with these sorts of insane, unprecedented schemes that the Trump administration is engaging with right now. It's directly Hitlerian policy. And most people are either A, oblivious to it, or B, the ones who are aware of it are in support of it. So think about how that can happen. Try to analyze how that can happen in a country where there isn't the same level of fucking crime. And then think about what it would look like, how bloodthirsty normal Americans would be like if there was that level of crime as well. The United States Department of State also recognized these allegations in their El Salvador Human Rights Report in 2023, signaling arbitrary killings, cruel treatment by security forces, harsh and life-threatening prison conditions, and extensive gender-based violence as some of the barriers which have undermined President Bukele's security strategy. The Socorro Judicio Humanitario Foundation, which provides free legal advice to innocent Salvadorans criminalized by the state of emergency, has reported 315 deaths of incarcerated people since the establishment of the measure in 2022. The most prevalent causes of death signaled by the association are violence and lack of medical attention, although unknown causes of death have increased in 2024. These people only had the right to a hearing for the imposition of captivity measures, after which they died under the guardianship of the state. Amnesty International also explained that the widespread pattern of arbitrary arrest targets people from marginalized communities especially, which already suffer from crime and extreme poverty. The conditions that inmates experience within these prisons has also been heavily denounced by human rights organizations. As per the OAS, incarcerated individuals are stripped down to their underwear, placed in small cells where they sleep on the floor and do not have access to clean water or food. So the torturous conditions are already fucking inhumane and unacceptable, even when they are torturing MS-13 gang members, by the way, just so you understand. But the major problem here on top of that is that it's not all MS-13 gang members. It's not all rugged criminals. It's just what the state has decided is a fucking rugged criminal. Yeah, Salvadoran here who's been and is going again this year. Reason for Bukele's high popularity is because living conditions have improved. It's just that simple. So they see the improvement and think, well, it's working, and either don't care or see it as necessary. They've fallen for the propaganda. And for the record, we're talking about what's going on in El Salvador. But what's happening in El Salvador is no longer just about El Salvador, because we're sending Americans to this torture facility. Okay? And the reasons as to why we're doing that, the reasons as to why we're sending Americans or, legal permanent residents and potentially Americans down the line to this torture slave camp without due process, with no mechanisms to bring back these people, even if the Supreme Court demands that they bring back these people, is because we want to have an unaccountable torture slave labor colony that is not on U.S. soil, where we can just like ship enemies of the state to. And considering that the Trump administration is entertaining the notion of even drawing fucking penises on a Tesla as an act of terror, that can mean anyone and everyone. It's very weird that a lot of people refuse to recognize how this will fuck them down the line. It is shocking.
The border, when even in Democrat-run cities, they get a help from the work you're doing. So I'm really happy to be here, honored, and eager to help.
Well, we had a terrible thing happen. We had an administration that allowed people to come in freely into our country from not only South America, but from...
Tip, don't blow up a car. Yeah, okay, man. Blowing up a car, by the way, is a crime. It's just totally separate from a crime that can get you as an American citizen to be black bagged and shipped without due process to a fucking slave camp where you might die. Okay? What are you talking about? Like, what are we doing? What is this attitude? Just fucking kill everyone then, That's this is the logical conclusion that so many dumb, mouth-breathing fascists come to, where it's just like, oh, you did a crime? Fucking die. I'm gonna kill you. Like, that's what you're saying. No reason. I've just decided you've done a crime and therefore I'm going to kill you. I'm going to shoot you dead. And it's awesome that they're doing that. Like, you have no imagination on how this could one day harm you, okay?
All over the world, many from the Congo in Africa, Asia, all over the world, Europe, rough parts of Europe. And they came from prisons, and they came from mental institutions, and they came from gangs and the gangs of Venezuela and other places.
I don't do crimes.
And
dog, normal daily activities that you engage in today could be considered a crime tomorrow. How is this difficult to understand? You are a fucking idiot. Also, it doesn't matter if you do a crime. If there's no due process, someone can just say you are doing a crime and black bag you anyway. That's the whole point of eroding due process. If there's no free speech, for example, and no due process, for example, these are two things that the Trump administration is eroding at this moment. Someone could just decide that they don't like the thought crime that you engaged in and black bag you. The only thing holding this entire structure together for you in your mind is the fantasy that it will never happen to you or a loved one. You don't actually need to do something. If there's no due process, someone could just claim that you did something and it's enough for you to get fucking sent to the slave labor camp.
Hundreds of thousands and even millions of them came. 21 million people altogether, but many of the people that came, just a tremendous percentage of them were criminals, in some cases violent criminals. We had 11,088 known murderers. Half of them murdered more than one person. This was allowed by a man who, what he did to our country is just unbelievable. So we're straightening it out. We're getting him out. But what they did and what that party did to our country, open borders, anybody could come in. As soon as I heard that, I said, every prison's going to be emptied out into our country. That's what happened. And we're straightening it out. And we just had numbers. We had the highest recruiting numbers in the history of our country going into police departments. And a year ago, we had the lowest numbers. You couldn't hire a
biggest
police.
change. Yeah.
Nobody's
From
ever
the
seen.
lowest to the highest.
And the military
said,
now,
okay.
Marines, the Army.
Okay, do you understand the point, though? Do you understand how this is dangerous for everyone, including yourself? No matter how dumb you are, even the dumbest person, I think, can be convinced that they are also under threat. Oh.
Air Force, Coast Guard. Every slot is, I mean, we have the best numbers we've ever had. We call it recruitment numbers. And we've never had anything like it. We had records on at every single level. But very important, the policemen. The policemen are joining forces now that we're having a hard time with policemen because we weren't protecting our police. Yeah. And we cherish our police. The police are great, and the firemen and everybody else. But we have the highest numbers that we've ever had, the most enthusiasm. Great enthusiasm. And on trade and other things, we're doing great. We're taking in billions and billions of dollars. We made, 2 weeks ago, I gave them a little bit of a pause because, you know, you have to show a little flexibility. But we go back to what we have to do. The markets have been very strong once they got used to it. But we were losing $2 billion a day. There's no company big like this. This is the biggest deal ever made. Now we're making $3 billion a day. We're a great country, but we had stupid people running this country. And I can say it. What they've done to us at the border should never and can never be forgotten. It's a sin, what they did. And you are helping us out. And we appreciate it. Thanks.
Actually, what you're doing with the border is remarkable. It has dropped, what, 95%? It's incredible.
As of this morning, 99%, 99.1% to be exact.
Why are those numbers not in the media?
Well, they get out with the fake news, you know, like CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers. They only like putting out because I think they hate our country, actually.
Yeah,
but it's a shame. You're right. Isn't that a great question? Why doesn't the media? Why don't they put out numbers?
Yeah, 99%. I mean, it's crazy, right?
We're doing
it's
great.
A crazy turnaround.
Christy, could you maybe say a couple of words about the border? How we're doing?
You know, it's just been absolutely phenomenal what a great leader can do. Clear direction. Our laws matter. We should only have people in our country that love us, and the Border Patrol and our ICE officers and law enforcement officers have done fantastic work. So we're proud of them. Now we just need to get the criminals and murderers and rapists and dangerous gang members and terrorist organizations out of our country. So, Mr. President Bukele, we thank you very much for your partnership. It has been wonderful for us to be able to have somewhere to send the worst of the worst and someone to partner with.
This entire conversation is happening on the heels of a person who demonstrably is not the worst of the worst, that the American federal government has actively admitted was not the worst of the worst. The El Salvador president refusing to order the return of the wrongly deported U.S. man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, okay, despite a unanimous Supreme Court decision, 9-0 Supreme Court decision, in direct violation of the Supreme Court's orders, that the Trump administration is utilizing the language surrounding the Supreme Court's unanimous decision to their advantage, while also simultaneously saying that they have no interest in facilitating this anyway. The president of El Salvador said in a meeting with Donald Trump at the White House on Monday that he would not order the return of a Maryland man who was deported in error to a Salvadoran mega prison. The question is preposterous, Nayib Bukele said in the Oval Office on Monday, where he was welcomed by Trump and spoke with the president and members of his cabinet. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I'm not going to do it. This person is not a terrorist. This person is not even in MS-13. This person is in the crosshairs of MS-13. The American judiciary, the American justice system found that this person was not only not MS-13, but also simultaneously under threat from MS-13 if he were ever to be sent back to El Salvador. Okay? The government said, we cannot deport this person because you don't usually deport someone to another country in any case. But even if there was a situation where this person committed an act so vicious that they were deportable, they cannot be deported to El Salvador. Okay? He was in the process of going through his asylum application when he was black bagged and shipped away. And not only did all that happen, thank you. Not only did all this happen, the federal government also admitted that it was wrong. They engaged in an administrative error and falsely deported this person to El Salvador. I don't have the power to return him to the United States, and said he would not release the man into El Salvador either. I'm not very fond of releasing terrorists into the country. The comments came a day after the Trump administration claimed that it's not legally obligated to secure the return of Alberto Garcia, despite the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that the administration should facilitate bringing him back. Lawyers for the Justice Department argued in court filings on Sunday that asking El Salvador to return Alberto Garcia from a notorious mega prison should be considered foreign relations and was therefore outside of the scope of the courts. How is the ruling enforceable? No ruling is technically enforceable. The judiciary has the power to persuade. That's it. Nothing else. The judiciary, the Supreme Court does not have any mechanism of enforcement beyond what it says goes. If the federal government refuses to follow through on the Supreme Court's decision, you create a constitutional crisis. That means the entirety of the judiciary is done. It's over. There's no power anymore. Yeah, the judiciary requires a buy-in from the executive and society at large. They have no enforcement mechanism. This is a true constitutional crisis in every sense of the term. Yes. So what's happening right now with Nayib Bukele is the Trump administration basically saying, fuck you going to do about it?
We'd like to continue that partnership because it's been a powerful message of consequences. Mr. President, you wanted people to know that there was consequences if you break our laws and harm our people and endanger families. And this is a clear consequence for the worst of the worst, that we have somewhere to put them.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we even had this gang member from Venezuela, one of the ones you sent, and we interviewed him just to get some information, etc. from them. And he said, oh, well, I got arrested 6 times, but they released me the 6th time, so I should be released again. And then I said, well, what's the last thing you do? And he said, well, I shot a cop in the leg, but I didn't kill him. I just shot him in the leg. And we're like, this guy was arrested 6 times here in the United States, 6 times. He was released 6 times, and in the he was released 5 times, and the last time he was sent to El Salvador, right? So he's not getting released. But the last time he shot a cop, actually, and he shot him in the leg. So these are, there's something broken.
It's the liberal establishment. But they're not running things anymore in this country, and we're run by, and I don't say conservative, I don't say anything, we're run by people with great common sense.
Yeah, common sense.
Yeah, that's not the point, is it? That's not who we're talking about right now, is it? Even that guy should still go through the criminal justice system here in the United States of America. If he shot an American cop, he needs to go to American prison. That's my attitude on this issue, but sending him to fucking El Salvador is insane. It doesn't make any sense. Having said that, however, the overwhelming majority of people that we've sent down to the CCOT facility so far are not even convicted of any sort of wrongdoing. They're not even accused of any sort of wrongdoing. The overwhelming majority have no criminal record whatsoever. They've been grabbed off the streets for erroneous claims with this incredibly stupid, arbitrary point system that they've designed to be like, oh, you got a tattoo and you're brown? It's over. You're going to fucking CCOT. It's not even about deporting them at this point back to their nation of origin. It's just straight up permanently jailing them in a slave camp. It is fucking insane.
It's all common sense. It's not liberal conservative. It's common sense. Do you allow men to play in women's sports? Do you allow men to box your women and box? Because I know you have a lot of boxing.
That's violence.
That's abuse. It's abuse of the law. But we have people that fight to the death because they think men should be able to play in women's sports.
Why should he get fed in American prisoners with taxpayer money? They're not even citizens. Oh my God, brother. Oh my God. Oh my God. How are we having this conversation over and over and over again every single time? Okay. The American criminal justice system has a higher standard until Donald Trump had a higher standard. Okay. The entire purpose is to make sure that justice is served. You understand? If an undocumented migrant shoots and kills, I doubt that. What do you mean you doubt that? Well, that's not an argument. Okay, never mind. You doubt it. Okay, well, I guess fucking owned. If you or one of your loved ones was wronged by an undocumented migrant or a documented migrant or a U.S. citizen, you want the American courts to at the very least go through the process and punish these people, convict them and charge them of the crimes and the wrongdoing that they engaged in. It's so fucking stupid. I hate that because Americans are so vindictive and so insane when it comes to crime and punishment that they straight up, no, I would want the death penalty. Dude, it's over, man. We are just a nation of bloodthirsty fascists, okay? Every fucking suburb has Adolf Hitler, like 9-month subscriber, okay? 9-month subscriber, just straight up Adolf Hitler when it comes to crime and punishment. No, I would want the death penalty. Sick. When I hear stuff like this, I do think, not the worst. Not the worst that we have Donald Trump. We kind of do fucking deserve it. Why should legacy Americans care? That's what they want. No. Wait, what? Don't forget, USA is scaring the immigrant working force. How about we stole the most brilliant peoples from the vassal states? What? What are you fucking saying? Did you get hit in the head over the course of the past 3 days? Legacy Americans? Are you LARPing as a Tucker Carlson fan? Like, what the fuck's happening here? İki buçukta yaparsan yerim. God damn it.
Sports, and some of those sports, it wouldn't matter much, but it still matters. But some of them are very dangerous for women.
Some years ago, like we said, a decade ago or so, women's rights movements were pressuring so that we enacted specific laws to avoid men abusing women. And I think those laws were great because there were a lot of men abusing women. But now some of the same people are trying to backtrack on that and actually trying to make new laws allowing men to abuse women in sports. So actually, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
It's crazy. They have weightlifting records, right?
Yeah.
A woman gets up and sways. She's incredible.
Oh my God. They're fucking talking about like trans athletes. I'm losing my fucking mind, dude. This is what we deserve. This is what we deserve. We deserve the divine punishment that Donald Trump is dishing out to all Americans. We really do deserve it. We're so fucking stupid. We're such dumb hogs, dude. We're fucking championing this. We're like, this is great. This is awesome. Look at our brilliant president doing what's right, combating the real issues, trans athletes.
Each about 100 pounds. What are you going to do? A record that hadn't been broken in 18 years. They put on an ounce, quarter of an ounce, eighth of an ounce for 18 years. Now they have a guy come up, ping. The whole thing is crazy. But they continue to fight. And I don't like talking about it because I want to save it for just before the next election. I said, my people, don't even talk about it because they'll change. And but I watched this morning, it was a congressman fighting to the death for men.
Documented New York reports that one of the Venezuelans deported to El Salvador was a 19-year-old with no criminal record, no tattoos, and who wasn't even a target of the ICE operation, but ended up sent there anyway. An ICE agent even said he's not the one when arrested. Wilmer only found out his son had been detained after receiving a phone call on March 15th from his nephew, Luis, who lives with them. That morning was their last time together. They had gone around the corner to do their laundry. Later that day, Wilmer said his son met with a friend to get some help with some errands at the American Red Cross. He learned this from Luis, who looked at the situation from inside the apartment. When his son was on his way back, just steps from his home, ICE agents stopped him. The officers grabbed him and two other boys right at the entrance to our building. One said, no, he's not the one, like they were looking for someone else. But the other said, take him anyway. That moment marked the beginning of Wilmer's search for answers. Answers he's still waiting for. This is 19-year-old Merville Gutierrez, who was grabbed off the street in New York City days before he was sent to El Salvador. His family insists he has no connection to Tren de Aragua. He doesn't even have any tattoos. 19-year-old, take him anyway. This is Gestapo shit. This is stuff that we learned about in history books. Many of you in this community learned those lessons and are terrified. But some, I think, learned those lessons were like, why don't we do that here? It would be awesome to do that here. And that's why they're championing the doing of that here. Dude, come on, man. Come on. Like, you take a week off. In the midst of all of this, you're like, here's the poop sock. Like, you think this is a good opportunity for a poop sock chatter?
To play against women in sports. And you say to yourself, why? What are they doing, right? What are they doing? But your country's not too big in that.
No, of course not. We're big in protecting women.
Good.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a very important form of protection, too.
And as you can see, most of my cabinet are women, so.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's why you're
And
running.
they're not DEI hires or anything. They're just great at what they do. Right?
That's right. This is very impressive.
Yeah,
This
no.
is a first. We've had women, but we've never had 3 of them right here. That's
4 and 3
And
men.
look what we have. You guys feel a little bit mistreated? I like it. We've been advanced. I've been very advanced in that regard too. We have Pam, who's been so
Yes, I know.
fantastic.
And
Christy, and the most powerful woman they say
I
anywhere.
know, exactly.
She's rated.
They're all afraid of her.
Susie Wells, they say, oh, she's tough.
Yeah.
Most powerful woman in the world, according to magazines. What do I know?
Yes.
But I think she probably is.
Yeah.
She probably is.
Congratulations.
And you know, Stephen has done such a great job. Thank you, sir. We have great
He's
people.
very famous too.
But we love working with him. He really lets him have it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's no games.
No.
He knows. Do you have any questions, please? Let's not so. They're just so
Mr. President.
wrong. Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. You repeatedly mentioned last night that Russia's attack on Ukraine was a mistake. What is the exact mistake? And have you given Putin a deadline to actually move toward a ceasefire?
The mistake was letting the war happen. If Biden were competent, and if Zelensky were competent, and I don't know that he is. We had a rough session with this guy over here. He just kept asking for more and more. That war should have never been allowed to happen. That war, I went 4 years and Putin wouldn't even bring it up. And as soon as the election was rigged and I wasn't here, that war started. There was no way that war should have been allowed to happen. And Biden should have stopped it. And you take a look at Putin. I'm not saying anybody's an angel. But I will tell you, I went 4 years and it wasn't even a question. He would never, and I told him, don't do it. You're not going to do it. And it was the apple of his eye, but there was no way that he would have done it. All you had to do is lower oil prices. If you lowered oil prices, Biden kept the prices so high because he made it impossible to get it. If you lowered oil prices, you would have never had the war. But you wouldn't have had it with me anyway. That war would have never happened. And I think it's a great abuse. So now what do? You get a country where 25% of its land is gone, and the best locations, where millions of people are killed. You know, you haven't reported accurately the death. And this was Biden's war, and I'm trying to stop it. And I think we're going to do a good job. I hope we're going to do it. They lose 2,500 young people a week, think on average. Now they're Russians and they're Ukrainians, but it's 2,000. We don't care. It's like whatever it is. They're not from your country. They're not from mine. But I want to stop it. 2,500. It's a killing field. It's like the Civil War. You take a look. I look at the satellite pictures. This should not be happening in our time. Of course, our time can be pretty violent, as we know. But that's a war that should have never been allowed to start. And Biden could have stopped it, and Zelensky could have stopped it, and Putin should have never started it. Everybody's to blame.
Have you spoken to President Zelensky, sir, about his offer to purchase more Patriot missile batteries?
Oh, I don't know. He's always looking to purchase missiles, you know. He's against, listen, when you start a war, you got to know that you can win the war, right? You don't start a war against somebody that's 20 times your size and then hope that people give you some missiles. If we didn't give them what we gave, remember, I gave them javelins. That's how they won their first big battle with the tanks that got stuck in the mud, and they took them out with javelins. They have an expression that Obama at the time, Obama gave them sheets and Trump gave them javelins. But there's something that should have never happened. It's a really shame. The towns are destroyed. Towns and cities are, you know, largely destroyed. They have the spires, you know, the beautiful spires that go up. They say they were the most beautiful in the world in Ukraine for whatever reason, but the most beautiful in the world, they're mostly laying on their side, shattered and broken. And most importantly, you have millions of people dead. Millions of people dead because of 3 people I would say 3 people. Let's say Putin, number 1. But let's say Biden, who had no idea what the hell he was doing, number 2, and Zelensky. And all I can do is try and stop it. That's all I want to do. I want to stop the killing. And I think we're doing well in that regard. I think you'll have some very good proposals very soon.
Have you attributed a motive through the FBI investigation behind the attack on Governor Josh Shapiro over the weekend?
No, I haven't, but the attacker was not a fan of Trump, I understand, just from what I read and from what I've been told. The attacker basically wasn't a fan of anybody. It's probably just a whack job. And certainly a thing like that cannot be allowed to happen.
President Bukele, the best guarantee that this time you won't terminate the temporary
relationship with this man. I have the best relationship with him. We've known each other. I've known him since he was a very young man, as I said, very, very young, and I was impressed. I said, look how this guy is. In fact, you sort of look like a teenager. You look like a teenager. I said, what kind of a country is this? He grew up well in the last 5 years.
Do you support the extension for nationals of El Salvador under temporary protected status?
Do you plan to ask him?
Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CB.
Thank you to ask President Bukele to help return the man who your administration says was mistakenly deported. The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador?
Well, let me ask Pam, would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, 2 courts, an immigration court and an appellate.
This is insane to me. Like, the government openly at this point recognizes that they did the wrong thing. And a part of recognizing that this was an administrative error means recognizing the lower court decision, the immigration court decision to offer this person protected status against deportation from the United States of America, specifically to El Salvador. And they just simply lie over and over again. In the court proceedings, in the court proceedings that took place, they found out that this person was not a part of MS-13, that the confidential informant that lied to the police that he was MS-13 claimed that he was in New York. This person had never been in New York. On top of that, he was able to prove that if he were to be sent back to El Salvador, his life would be in danger. This is precisely the reason why they got the protections. It's crazy. Why won't reporters fact check them? There is nothing you can do. There's not really much you can do in terms of fact checking. I mean, he also said that Zelensky started the war again. You know what I mean? He's just like lying about so many different things. I mean, look, here it is. The war between Russia and Ukraine is Biden's war, not mine. I just got here and for 4 years during my term had no problem in preventing it from happening. President Putin and everyone else respected your president. I had nothing to do with this war, but I'm working diligently to get the death and destruction to stop. If the 2020 presidential election was not rigged, and it was, in so many ways, that horrible war would have never happened. President Zelensky, crooked Joe Biden did an absolutely horrible job in allowing this travesty to begin. There were so many ways of preventing it from ever starting, but that is the past. Now we have to stop. Now we have to get it to stop and fast. So sad. Everything he says is incorrect. Everything. Everything he says is a lie on every issue, whether it be tariffs, saying that there's going to be exemptions, but no exemptions, saying that Xi Jinping's going to call me any day now, and then being like, why won't Xi Jinping call me? Everything. He's just breaking everything. And it's not like things were great already. They weren't. They certainly weren't. Place.
Appellate immigration court ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs, if they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
And you are doing a great job. Thank you. Can you just also respond to that question? Because, it's asked by CNN, and they always ask it with a slant because they're totally slanted because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also, please?
Yes, gladly. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you,
Your indigestion is wild. Tums, Xantex, Prilosec. I know this is annoying, but I see you struggle with it every day. You're eating tons of protein for the gains. You got to help out your digestion a bit. Please don't yell at me. What? Dude, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't have any indigestion. What the actual fuck are you talking about? You think I use any of those things? I don't know if I should permanently ban this person or give him a week off. Don't yell at me. Dude, be fucking normal, dude. What the fuck is that? Jesus Christ, dude. I think he thinks that I'm, yeah, the Zins I'm popping are maybe Tums or something. That's what he thinks. Oh, fuck.
He's a citizen of El Salvador. So it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As 2 immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States.
That's not true. Every part of what he stated here is wrong. And I know Charlie Kirk posted this as like, oh, he really popped off on this one. He just fucking, I guess that it's cool. You can just lie about all this shit.
As a starting point. As 2 immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13.
That's not true. First of all, that is straight up not true.
When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue...
Oh, that's kidnapping. That's actually the kidnapping. It's not what we did. What we did was a legal enforcement that we recognized wasn't legal now. But returning that person would be the real kidnapping. Okay, kidnap him and return him then. Who are they talking about? Is this guy's name public? Yes. His name is Kilmar Abrego Garcia. His name is Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He's a Maryland resident with a wife and a child. He was a member of a union. It's so insane that they're acting like this is the sovereignty of El Salvador issue. Like, what is this?
She was raised with the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful and its main components were reversed 9-0.
This is also an inversion of the truth once again. Here's Ed Whelan's statement on the matter. Outrageous misinterpretation of the Supreme Court ruling. The unanimous court ruled that the district court order properly requires the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. Yes, the court also stated that the intended scope of the term effectuate in the district court's order is, however, unclear and may exceed the district court's authority. And it told the district court to clarify its directive with due regard for the deference owed to the executive branch in the conduct of foreign affairs. But 1, due regard doesn't mean that the district court couldn't have any teeth to effectuate. And 2, in any event, the district court dropped effectuate from its revised order, so this is all irrelevant. Duty to facilitate continues. As I've said, the Trump administration will probably be able to get away with its bad faith defiance of the court on this matter, but it's appalling that it thinks anyone is stupid enough to believe that it is actually complying with the court's ruling. Or rather, reversing the court's actual ruling by saying, no, the Supreme Court actually is on our side. The unanimous decision is there to defend our our immigration enforcement action. It's not. It's the exact opposite. If it was in defense of your immigration enforcement action, you wouldn't be playing legalese semantics with the decision. You would just say, the decision is clear as day. The Supreme Court thinks what we did was totally permissible. Instead, you have to hyper focus on what facilitate versus effectuate means. Facilitation doesn't mean that this is an enforceable action, for example. Like that's the entire point of contention here. If the unanimous Supreme Court decision was stating that the federal government has the power to do this, they would not have said the federal government has to facilitate a return of the Maryland resident immediately.
Unanimously.
What do they gain by keeping him there? A million different reasons. One, they stand firm and test out the boundaries of the Supreme Court. Two, they basically violate Supreme Court orders without triggering a constitutional crisis, which gives them more opportunity to do this down the line. Three, if he were to be returned, he talks about the horrifying nature of the prisons. You got, 60 Minutes doing you set a precedent. You set a scary precedent for the Trump administration that, like, some of the people that they are interested in unjustifiably sending over to the slave colony can be returned to U.S. soil. And on top of that, they talk about the horrifying conditions there and the horrifying mistreatment that they experience as a Maryland resident. All of a sudden, it destroys the secretive nature of these operations, because you don't want any microscope on this. Okay, you don't want any sort of attention being brought forward here. They're trying to basically start a process in which they have enough utilizing the pre-existing legal restrictions to their advantage to slowly but surely erode the last mechanisms of safety that would stop the administration from doing stuff like this, whether it be due process, whether it be, violating court orders. So if they were to actually return this person and he comes back, it's horrible propaganda against the administration. It ruins everything that they're trying to do. It makes them look weak. It sets a precedent that they have to abide by court. They have to abide by the authority of the courts. Why did they even admit they made a mistake? Also, was he really the only one? No, of course not. He's not the only person that was sent there under false pretense. He's the only one that a immigration attorney of the state accidentally admitted to the administrative error on. That attorney has also literally been fired, I think. I think they fired him, right? Pam Bondi literally said, "You're done. You're out." Why did you ever admit to this? That's the problem. Virtually all of the people, with the exception of like a handful, are actually sent to El Salvador under similar conditions. This one is the most egregious because there was a directive from the court to not send him to El Salvador. It's the tip of the iceberg.
Stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan
But
to
the
ask for
Supreme
any
Court
help
is
to get him
asking
back?
to.
And
that-
what was the ruling
that your
in
decision?
the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
In our favor.
in our favor against the district court ruling.
That's not what happened. It's the exact opposite of what happened. That is
saying
incredible.
that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual at El Salvador's sole discretion was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time.
Well,
No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it, per the court, can only be directed to him.
I asked,
Mr.
President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to have been suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right?
So
How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like,
Like, again, everyone is just saying he's a terrorist. He's not. It's insane.
It's preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you can release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world. No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people. Marco, do you have something to say about
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Eitland, I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin. Except for Venezuela, that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
And that's what the Supreme Court held, by the way, to Marco's point. The Supreme Court said exactly what Marco said, that no court has the authority to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual, because they want foreign terrorists in the country who kidnap women and children. But President Trump, his policy is foreign terrorists that are here illegally get expelled from the country, which, by the way, is a 90-10 issue.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago. And they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You have no credibility. Please, go ahead.
How many illegal criminals are you planning on exporting to El Salvador? And President Bukele, how many are you willing to take from the U.S.?
As many as possible.
Yeah, why won't you cover the news in a way where it suits my propaganda purposes is a crazy way to redirect the question. It's not even redirection. It's just like, why don't you just feed my ego? That's crazy. Like, doing this while he's openly defying a unanimous decision from the Supreme Court and simultaneously, without evidence, with only evidence to prove the opposite that's readily available, claiming that the guy that they're defying the Supreme Court order for is actually a terrorist, and also admitting that they want to do this to American citizens as well. How the fuck does nobody understand how terrifying this is? It's not like they're sheltering you from the truth. They're saying this is the goal, this is the purpose, this is what they are moving in the direction of. And it seems like a lot of Americans are oblivious, and the ones who are not oblivious are actively fantasizing about this. I don't even know how you combat this. I truly don't know how you, I don't know what to do in this situation. This is just unprecedented territory. Yeah, meanwhile, the army is arriving at the southern border as they're gearing up potentially for an invasion. I don't even know what the fuck they're going to do there. This is openly defiant of the Supreme Court, which specifically upheld in a unanimous decision an order that requires the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador. Here it is. The order properly requires the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador. They just wrote it, clear as day. Trump administration claims SCOTUS ruling doesn't compel it to actually seek illegally deported man's release from prison, only to let him into the U.S. if he manages to get out.
And I just asked the president, it's this massive complex that he built, jail complex. I said, can you build some more of them, please? As many as we can get out of our country that were allowed in here by incompetent Joe Biden through open borders. Open borders. You probably hear open borders and you can't even understand it because nobody can understand it. Nobody smart or with common sense can understand it. So we have millions of people that should not be in this country that are dangerous.
The only person that I've seen that is actively doing something about this is Van Hollen. Okay. Respect to Chris Van Hollen on this. Requests meeting with President Bukele to discuss the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Announces intent to travel to El Salvador this week if Abrego Garcia is not returned. U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland has requested a meeting with Nayib Bukele when he's in the United States. And if he is not returned by the end of this week, he's going to go down to El Salvador. This is actually 100% something I am in support of. 1,000,000,000%. As an American senator, you have a lot of opportunity to bring attention to issues, and putting yourself directly in the crosshairs is a fantastic way to do that. And I am I'm glad that there is at least someone out there that's willing to do this. Imagine if Booker did this for Mahmoud. Yeah, he would never in a million years do that because Cory Booker is Israel's guy. Okay, that's the reality. But yes, that is the expectation from our senators. This is the right thing to do. This is the smart thing to do. I'm very happy that there's at least someone demonstrating the courage necessary. Partially because when you're an American senator and a country like El Salvador, let's say, denies you entry into the country, you're basically taking an action not just against an American senator, a member of the Democratic Party, but you're taking action against America. And I think that will have a profound impact on the way that this is treated in the media and the way that Americans will respond to this. It will create a situation where Americans who run off the notion that we're the #1 country on the planet, with our citizens having extra rights in comparison to everybody else, will get mad at the Trump administration if the Trump administration doesn't turn around and defend an American senator. Can he actually get him out? Trump won't approve of this and won't care if they don't let him in. No, I'm saying that, let's say Senator Chris Van Hollen goes to, but this is a 2080 issue. Most Americans support that. No, they do not. No, they do not. You are crazy for just simply repeating something that Stephen Miller is saying. Americans don't know what the fuck they're in support of until it becomes an issue that is in front of their eyes. That's why I place a lot of importance on senators like this taking action against this, to put this in the forefront of American consciousness. Do you not understand how many times do we have to experience this until people recognize that something being considered a 2080 issue doesn't necessarily mean it will stay a 2080 issue? This is at the heart of my anger towards the Democratic Party in terms of immigration. No counter messaging on immigration has created an environment, a media landscape that is heavily dominated by right-wing lies on the issue. This is precisely the reason why Americans are either, like I said, oblivious to the actions that the Trump administration is taking, or at the very least entertain it or enjoy it and support it, the ones who are knowledgeable on the actions being taken to begin with. But that is only because they do not comprehend the full scope of what is happening. Yeah. Also ironic to say this exactly. These dumbass shadows don't realize that 2 years ago, Israel had 80% of American support. Yeah. Now it's become a 2080 issue in the other direction, at least in the Democratic Party. This doesn't stop the Democrats from refusing to recognize the popular support towards Palestinian emancipation that is in their base, because, you know, their careers rely on them refusing to recognize it. But these kinds of actions, unironically, when paired up with the reality that every American can experience, every American can see, will quickly change the attitude. Look no further than the fucking tariffs. Donald Trump ran on tariffs. He could say he won on tariffs. Look at the Americans' attitude towards tariffs now. Because once implemented, everybody realized, oh my God, this is going to have a horrible impact on both the stock market and also the price of goods. Please drop this this is a 2080 issue nonsense. We are a particularly stupid country, okay? We're a particularly dumb and stubborn nation.
Not just people, because we have people, but we have millions of people that are murderers, drug dealers. They've been allowed to come into our country by other countries that were very smart. When they heard that this very low IQ president, and by the way, I took my cognitive exam as part of my physical exam, and I got the highest mark, and one of the doctors said, "Sir, I've never seen anybody get that that was the highest mark." I hope you're happy with that, although they haven't been bugging me too much to take a cognitive, but I did do my physical and it was released. I hope you're all happy with it. I notice there's no question, so probably you are. But the cognitive, they said to me, "Sir, would you like to take a cognitive test?" I said, "Did Biden take one?" "No." "Did anybody take one?" "No, not too many people took them." I said, "What about what about Obama? Did he take one? No, he didn't take one either. I said, let me be the only one to take one. But I've actually taken them 3 times already. I like taking them because they're not too tough for me to take. But we had a great physical exam, so I know you're going to ask that. And the doctors, who are total professionals, Walter Reed Medical Center, they're great people. And I visited a soldier that was badly wounded, incredible soldier, lost his leg, and spent a lot of time with him. I mean, great with his mother, and it was really a very great thing. They do a phenomenal job. I just want to say, Walter Reed, I was there for, 5-6 hours. You were there with me. But I took a full physical, and it came out perfecto, so that's good. That means you've got me for a little longer. I'd do something. We'd help them out. Yeah, we help them. They're great facilities, very strong facilities, and they don't play games. I'd like to go a step further. I mean, I said it to Pam. I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws, but we also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways, that elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that are absolute monsters. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country, but you'll have to be looking at the laws on that, Steve, okay?
More presidents should follow suit like you guys as far as taking a hard stance on crime here in the United States.
Well, I do. I think everybody has to. I mean, the president said it better than anybody. He said, you have liberty and you have to have liberty, but to have liberty, not everybody is going to be good. And, some are bad because they're sick. They're mentally deranged. They're bad. Then you have to take them. If you're going to have a country, you're going to have to take those people out. And we've been doing that. But this was like an unforced error, they would call it, where we had people that may hate our country, or maybe they're just stupid people. I think they're probably stupid people more so. A lot of people said they did it for the vote. But I did better with Hispanic people than they did, because they always use Hispanic. I did better. You people love me. I saw my poll numbers in your country up through the roof, right? 91%. Some people think they do it for the vote, but they don't have to do it for the vote. They cheat.
How dangerous the U.S. for tourists right now? Incredibly dangerous. Straight up. I never thought I would say this. Insanely dangerous. Because they don't just deny you entry into the country, okay, which they have already. That's a saving grace. You getting denial of entry into the country saves your ass. Because we don't just deport anymore. We just send you to a slave labor prison and then actively say, we can't bring you back. Sorry, sucks to suck. Actually, do not come. If you think you have legal protections, let me tell you right now, you do not have any legal protections. And American citizens themselves will no longer have legal protections either. This has also obviously led to travel falling off of a fucking cliff here. The U.S. Is one of the world's top travel spots, pulling in over 72 million visitors last year, generating 1.3 trillion. But lately, travel from Europe and Canada is down up to 35% thanks to Trump's talk and scary border stories. Trump is bankrupting the U.S. It's down 30% for most countries, 20 to 30%. It's okay, V. Thank you for the 10 gifted subs. They're also shut up seizing mobile devices of people they suspect just to look at contacts. They're doing this to American citizens too, by the way. They did this to an immigration lawyer. They literally sat him down and tried to go through his phone. And they said they knew he was an immigration lawyer. There's also the other side of the story where they're incredibly incompetent. They sent out a mass blast of emails to American citizens telling them to self-deport in 10 days. That also happened this past week. And it was so stupid that I initially thought it can't be real. There was an immigration attorney in the United States of America that revealed that her wife, who's also an American citizen, got a immigration enforcement email demanding that they self-deport in 7 days, saying that their saying that their legal permanent residency had been revoked. This person was not a legal permanent resident. They were a citizen. So not only is it horrifying, it's also incredibly stupid and incredibly incompetent as well. Yeah. How is this country going to host a World Cup is a real question. This is supposed to happen in a couple months. A well-respected MMA coach who always posts training tips and is based out of Australia, says he arrived in the U.S. for an already scheduled seminar, but was detained at the border, thrown in a federal prison, and ultimately deported. Like, why the fuck would you come here, dude? Oh, next year. Sorry, not this year. Next year. I don't even know how we get to next year at this stage. At this point, I don't know what next year looks like even. World Cup next year, Club World Cup is this summer. Yeah, there's a 2025 Cup in June and July, right? Are you afraid of being targeted by the Trump administration? Chatters, I am an American citizen. I was born here, okay? By the time the Trump administration decides to take illegal actions and enforcement against someone like myself, it's already over. I'm definitely on the list. Like, someone like myself would certainly be on the list with someone of my background, but I'm on the lower side of said list. Understand that many of you will have already been packed up by the time they fucking get to someone like myself. I hope that we will at some point dial this back dramatically.
You know, they're professional cheaters. That's about the only thing they do well. So we just have had a great relationship, and it's become bigger because of a strange thing that happened. You know, I came back. We had no war in Ukraine. We had no war we had no October 7th Middle East problem. We had nothing. We had no inflation. We didn't have the Afghanistan most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. The Afghanistan not withdrawing, because I would have been out. You know, I had it all set to bring people out with dignity and pride. That was the worst, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. Afghanistan.
God damn it! What the hell? Little F there. Minor F, but we're back. We're back. No, they didn't get me. The CIA heart attack gun did not get me. Everybody calm down. It wasn't that significant of a drop. God damn, everybody loses their freaking minds anytime there's a little bit of a F. There was a blip, okay? Calm down.
Middle East, we didn't have any of that. You wouldn't have had the war with Russia, Ukraine. You wouldn't have had the Middle East problem because Iran was broke. They had no money because we had secondary sanctions on and lots of other sanctions. And now every single thing. Got a problem with Iran, but I'll solve that problem. That's almost an easy one. We got to solve a war that should have never started, Ukraine and Russia, and we'll get that solved. And we have to solve problems, and we already solved inflation. You know, if you look at the numbers are incredible, actually. The stock market's up, and we're not letting other countries take advantage of this country like they have for the last 40 years. So thank you very much. You have a question, please?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you so much. You scored another major investment win this morning when NVIDIA pledged to build its AI supercomputer, the first time ever, right here in the United States.
Thank you. That's a question I like. That's true.
What is your reaction to this announcement, sir, and how will this positively benefit Americans across the entire country?
Well, it's one of the biggest announcements you'll ever hear, because NVIDIA, as you know, controls that almost the entire sector, which is one of the most important sectors in the world, between chips and semiconductors and everything else. And they're the biggest. And the other biggest we already have coming in and spending $300 billion, as you know. They announced 2 weeks ago. But NVIDIA is so highly respected. And this was an announcement that a lot of people, I knew it was going to happen, but not to the extent that it happened. It's big. And the reason they did it is because of the election on November 5th and because of a thing called tariffs. As I say, the most beautiful word in the dictionary. After love, God, relationship. The press actually hit me and said, tariff is the most beautiful word in the dictionary. What about family, love, God? I got hit even on that. You understand? I said, okay. So now I say it's my 5th most favorite word because they get you on anything. But no, that NVIDIA, it's one of the great companies of the world, modern, super modern companies, controls segments that nobody, you know, sort of controls the world in a sense, and they're coming in here in the biggest way with hundreds of billions of dollars. Not like millions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, and I'm honored by it. And I want to thank Jensen and all of the people that we deal with. They're great people, they're brilliant people. And without tariffs, they wouldn't be doing it. Thank you very
Do you
much.
have an update on additional sanctions against Russia after their latest attack? And do you have an update on the rate and when you might announce semiconductor
sanctions on Russia? I put them there. If you remember, Nord Stream 2, that's the big pipeline that goes through Europe. I stopped it. That's Russia's pipeline, the largest pipeline, I think, in the world, goes to Germany. And I stopped it. And when Biden came in...
Well, Biden blew it up, so, I mean, who took more significant action, one must ask.
He approved it. And then they say, oh, I'm friendly with Russia. No. Putin said, you know, if you're my friend, I'd hate to see you when you're my enemy. I stopped the biggest economic job they ever had. I stopped it cold, right? It was dead. You know that, right? And Biden came in and he immediately approved it. What was that all about? And it's a pipeline that takes care of a lot of the needs. Now, you know, it was a very controversial thing, but I stopped it and Biden approved it. Question?
On tariffs,
no, not you.
Pharmaceuticals,
what?
Semiconductor tariffs, and potentially pharmaceuticals.
Pharmaceuticals, we're going to do. We don't make our own drugs, our own pharmaceuticals. We don't make our own drugs anymore. The drug companies are in Ireland and they're in lots of other places, China. And all I have to do is impose a tariff. The more, the faster they move in. The higher the tariff, it's very serious. It's inversely proportional. The higher the tariff, the faster they come. And yeah, we're going to be doing that. That's going to be like we have on cars. We have, as you know, a 25% tariff on cars. We have a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum. And that's what that category fits right now.
Do you have a percentage in mind and a timeline?
I have a timeline, yeah, not too distant future. And we're doing it because we want to make our own drugs. We're doing it because we want to make our own steel and aluminum, lumber, other things. And they're all coming in. We have record numbers, $7 trillion. Since I announced, like a month and a half ago, since I came in, we have over $7 trillion being invested in the country. We didn't have $1 trillion. We didn't have $500 billion for some of these guys. They didn't know what the hell they were doing. So we have the largest investment that we've ever heard of, and we're only 2 months in.
Is any of this true? No, of course it's not true. Of course, none of this is true. What has Donald Trump ever said that's correct? I mean, what he's gonna do, when he says he's gonna do something, I guess there is some veracity to that, but that's not like if he says he's gonna engage in ridiculous deportations of people, or when he says that he's gonna do this to American citizens as well, yeah, treat that as the truth. He will try. As far as like things that he claims have happened, everything is a lie. In terms of the economy, tariffs, its impact, everything that he's saying is a fucking lie, straight up.
And that'll continue at levels that you've never seen before. That's what's going to happen. And even the stock market.
When he says this is going to fix the trade deficit, that's a lie. When he says he's going to bring manufacturing to the United States with this action, that's a lie. It is physically impossible for him to do so. Okay? It is not possible for him to do this without severe government-funded initiatives to build a robust base of manufacturing in the United States of America. He will not be able to do any of these things.
Market's up today. It's we also had, you know, we a lot of people didn't say it the way it was. We had the largest gain in the stock market in history on every single category.
Yeah, after the largest cataclysmic dip of the stock market, there was a brief moment of recovery, and yet it's still incredibly unstable due to his administration going back and forth. That's the other side of this. The instability caused by Donald Trump going back and forth on the tariffs and exemptions and then going back on the exemptions. That in and of itself does not exactly spell order, instability, and therefore causes people to go, yeah, I will invest trillions of dollars into this magical American manufacturing. Why should it?
That was a nice game because we were getting a little hit because people didn't understand the power of our country economically if you use it right. Do you have something to say on that, JD?
Yes, sir. I mean, look, for 40 years we have lost manufacturing capacity. Workers have seen their wages stagnate, and some of the most critical things that we need, from the pharmaceuticals, the drugs that we give to our children, the antibiotics that we give to our kids, to the weapons that we actually need to fight a war, if God forbid we had to fight a war, we don't make enough of that stuff. And so President Trump ran explicitly on changing that. Yes, as the president mentioned, it caused a little bit of disruption in the market, but I actually think over the long term, workers are going to benefit, stocks are going to go up, American businesses are going to benefit as we reinvest and reindustrialize our country.
And the auto workers and the Teamsters and all of the unions, not traditionally Republican, but I'm winning those unions by, we're up 40, 50 points on the Democrats. They're losing everything. They're losing everything because they just have policies that are not believable. They fight for policies that are 5% popular.
He embarrassed himself a couple minutes ago. Oh, he broke the trophy, right? I saw that. The CFP National Championship trophy falls apart as JD Vance tries to hold it afloat. Fucking idiot. The trophy was made in America by UAP Polic Talix in New York. The award is two separate pieces, the trophy and the base, with the idea being that the trophy is what's held aloft, not the base.
And nobody knows who the 5% are. I mean, nobody can find the 5%. But if you go back to Ohio, and by the way, we have the great championship team from Ohio coming in today, right?
Very big day.
And that's going to be a little bit later. And that'll be, if you want to stick around. You'll see some very large people, right? You see some people that even you have not seen people like this. These are big, these are 6'7", 380 pounds with no fat. Okay, that's pretty good, right? But the team, the national championship team, is being honored today at the White House, so that'll be exciting. If you're around, you want to stay around, I'll have you up there. You can tell them all about your prison, how you have to behave. Okay. Who else?
You said yesterday that you're making a decision on Iran very quickly. What do you mean by that? Is that a decision to strike Iran?
They have to solve their problem very quickly. Iran wants to deal with us, but they don't know how. They really don't know how. We had a meeting with them on Saturday. We have another meeting scheduled next Saturday. I said, that's a long time. That's a long time. So I think they might be tapping us along. But Iran has to get rid of the concept of a nuclear weapon. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. He can't have a nuclear weapon. Nobody can have. We can't have anybody having nuclear weapons. We can't have nuclear weapons. And I think they're tapping us along because we're so used to dealing with stupid people in this country. And I had Iran perfect. You had no attacks. You would have never had October 7th in Israel. It was broke. It was stone cold broke when I was president. And I don't want to do it. I want them to be a rich, great nation. The only thing is, one thing, simple. It's really simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. And they got to go fast because they're fairly close to having one. And they're not going to have one. And if we have to do something very harsh, we'll do it. And I'm not doing it for us. I'm doing it for the world. And these are radicalized people, and they cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Does that include a potential strike on Iranian nuclear facilities?
Of course it does.
And just a follow-up question, a clarification. You mentioned that you're open to deporting individuals that aren't foreign aliens but are criminals to El Salvador. Does that include potentially U.S. citizens fully naturalized American?
If they're criminals and if they hit people with baseball bats over their head that happen to be 90 years old, and if they rape 87-year-old women in Coney Island, Brooklyn, yeah, that includes them. What, do you think there's a special category of person? They're as bad as anybody that comes in. We have bad ones too. And I'm all for it. Because we can do things with the president for less money and have great security. And we have a huge prison population. We have a huge number of prisons, and then we have the private prisons, and some are operated well, I guess, and some aren't. But
this is him once again reconfirming that he's interested in sending American citizens to El Salvador in an unprecedented fashion as well.
Great job with that. We have others that we're negotiating with too. But no, if it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem. Now, we're studying the laws right now. Pam is studying. If we can do that, that's good. And I'm talking about violent people. I'm talking about really bad people. Really bad people. Every bit as bad as the ones coming in. And I made the statement when I heard about this a long time ago now, 4 years ago. When I heard that this guy was having open borders, I said every single criminal from all over the world is going to be dumped into our country. And that's what happened. Jails. The jails of the Congo were emptied out. The jails of Venezuela were emptied out. And you know what happened?
He used to say the jails in El Salvador were emptied out too. I thought it was really strange when he would shit on Nayib Bukele. I remember him doing that, claiming that Bukele was doing this as well. He said it at CPAC too, which was odd because like Bukele had attended a bunch of the CPAC conferences and was getting a lot of love from American Republicans. Seemingly that that has changed.
I went way down. But
I
now
feel like he's lying. Yeah, of course he's lying. What are you talking about? These people are not opening up their prisons and dumping their prisoners into the United States. You can't do that. That's not a thing that. That's not even a thing you can facilitate.
Venezuela has other country problems. You know what the problem is?
The irony, of course, is that the only time a country that is capable of doing that has done that is the United States of America. That's how MS-13 was created. MS-13 was a gang that was created in the American prison system, and we sent all of the MS-13 prisoners to El Salvador. We flew them in on flights, commercial jets, without telling the Salvadoran government that these were MS-13 gang members, and we just simply deported them without informing El Salvador that these were MS-13 gang members. So when Donald Trump says, like, this is something that other countries are doing, he probably doesn't even know that we did that. He has no idea that we literally did that to El Salvador. But that is how MS-13 became such a powerful organization. That's how it happened.
No money, yeah, because I shut off their oil, and we put secondary tariffs because they're not doing what's right over there. They know what to do. We spoke to them. I spoke to them. They know what to do, but they have no money. Venezuela has no money, but Iran had no money, and Iran behaved so beautifully. And then Biden took all those secondary tariffs on. I told China, you can't buy oil. If you buy oil from Iran, China, I told it to President Xi, then we no longer want you to do business with the United States of America. And those ships disappeared from that harbor so quickly. China, get along great with China.
Are the talks with Iran productive? Do you want to continue that? The talks with Iran, do you believe those are productive? Do you want to continue that?
I think Iran could be a great country as long as it doesn't have nuclear weapons. If they have nuclear weapons, they'll never get a chance to be a great country. They will never get a chance. It won't even come to us.
Sir, on tariffs?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yesterday you mentioned short-lived product exemptions. Which specific products are you considering, and how long is short-lived? Weeks, months?
I'm looking at something to help some of the car companies where they're switching to parts that were made in Canada, Mexico, and other places, and they need a little bit of time because they're going to make them here, but they need a little bit of time. So I'm talking about things like that.
What about any Apple products, other cell phones?
Look, I'm a very flexible person. I don't change my mind, but I'm flexible. And you have to be. You just can't have a wall and you'll only go. No, sometimes you have to go around it, under it, or above it. There'll be maybe things coming up. I speak to Tim Cook. I helped Tim Cook recently in that whole business. I don't want to hurt anybody, but the end result is we're going to get to the position of greatness for our country. We're the greatest economic power in the world if we're smart. If we're not smart, we're going to hurt our country very badly. We lost with China over the Biden years trillions of dollars on trade, trillions of dollars. And he let them fleece us, and we can't do that anymore. And you know what? I don't blame China at all. I don't blame President Xi. I like him. He likes me. I mean, you know. Who knows? Who the hell cares?
Do you have any updates on?
Oh my God, he's literally like a scorned lover, dude. His behavior with Xi now has dramatically shifted. He went from he's so scared, he'll call me. We have good relationships. We have a good relationship to please call me Xi. Xi, it would be really nice if you call me, to like who the hell cares about him? I don't care about him. I no longer care about him. I don't love him no more. This keeps going. This keeps going, and Trump is going to be begging for Xi to call by next week. Like, come on, please. What are you doing, Xi? You're ruining the global economy. Why would you do this? Why would you do this? Why would you let me do this, Xi?
You know what? What? Let me just tell you this. I don't blame China. I don't blame Vietnam. I see their meeting today. Is that wonderful? That's a lovely meeting. They're meeting, like, trying to figure out how do we screw the United States of America? Don't forget, the European Union was formed to do just that. The European Union was formed to hurt the United States and on trade. And they get us on NATO because they don't pay their bills. But now, since I got involved, they have been paying their bills. I took in over $600 billion for NATO. Nobody took in anything. I mean, they were all delinquent. They had 8 nations out of 28 paid their bills. The rest of them were way delinquent.
Don't do
And
NATO.
I said, if you don't
Don't
pay your
do
bills
NATO.
anymore,
Don't do
and the money
EU to
poured
me.
in over 600. The Secretary General last week made that statement. He said, I've never seen anything like it. We couldn't get anybody to pay because the United States was footing the bill for NATO. Well, we got hurt there, and we got hurt on trade, likewise, European Union. And they've got to come to the table, and they're trying to. They're trying to. But the European Union has taken terrible advantage. They don't take our food products. They don't take our cars. We have millions of their cars, BMW, Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, many others. They come in by the millions. They don't take. There are no Chevrolets in Munich, I can tell you that. I said to Angela Merkel when she was there, as she was letting millions of people infiltrate Germany, which was not so good from, we would call them illegal immigrants, but she made them legal. But I said to her, and I get along with her very well, I said, how many Chevrolets do we have?
So they're not illegal immigrants then. I like that we have changed our own designation for what we consider to be illegal versus legal immigrants, and we want to do that for other countries too. Like we gotta control what they do in terms of their own domestic policies, in terms of their own fucking asylum processes too. It's just like we gotta dominate the whole world. You need to change your food regulation so you can get our meat, our big beautiful meat, our big beautiful beef. You must get our poultry. You must get our chickens in our factories. You must get our cars. Change the roads. Widen those roads. Make it into a parking lot. I will not stop until Barcelona is one big parking lot.
Have in Munich or Frankfurt.
You remembered right on Trump?
Venezuela.
Shitting on Bukele? Yeah, of course.
Crime is down 72%. You know, Caracas, Venezuela, was a very, very dangerous place. And now, because of the great job they've done in removing their criminals into the United States, next year we're going to have our Michigan rally in Caracas, Venezuela, because it's nice and safe. Okay? Does that sound like a good idea to you? Because we want safety. Now, the press is going to write that. They're going to say, Donald Trump proposed next year's Michigan rally in Caracas, Venezuela. They'll say, isn't that horrible? Isn't that unpatriotic? You understand. This is what I have to go with. I'm only kidding, press. I'm only kidding. Although maybe it's not a bad idea. So El Salvador is an interesting one because I know the president. He's a young guy, and he's been getting this great press that his crime rate's way down. And they're training their criminals. Well, you don't train criminals, okay? You know, maybe every once in a while you get lucky, but you don't. So in El Salvador, murders are down 70%. He's saying, yes, we're teaching. He's different. Most of them just say, well, the United States is stupid, so we're dumping all our criminals there. He does it differently, smart. He goes, we're working with our people that are causing problems and crime. And he's not working with them. He's dumping them in the United States. And their crime rate, their murder rate is down 72%.
See?
73% and going up. And I don't blame him because of...
Yeah. He used to falsely claim that Nayib Bukele was also dumping prisoners into the United States of America. Anyway.
Why? None, Donald. None. I said, you're right. And yet we take in millions and millions of cars. No, those days are over.
How long
Okay.
do you think the exemption
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
So that was the combo. Here is a Wall Street Journal report on why the El Salvador President Bukele is so popular with Trump's inner circle, and also so popular with like conservative implemented martial law, and it's also more than 1%. So it was almost 2% of the population. Think about how insane that is, bro.
Civil liberties, including due process.
Yeah, no due process. It's crazy. And our right-wing politicians are looking at that and going, this is fantastic. This is an incredible idea. This is amazing. We need to do that. And this is like the Xi Jinping but for fascists, okay? what social democrats and democratic socialists and socialists alike look towards, like the governance of Xi Jinping in China. For fascists, like they're like, oh, Nayib Bukele is the method. He is the man for the moment. No wonder they fucking love collaborating with this. This shit is totally fake, by the way. Like all this God stuff is, he's just, I mean, I guess he's similar to Donald Trump in that vein. Trump being like, I love the Bible. I love the Bible. It's my favorite. I love all the verses.
And the most influential think tank in the world.
A big turning point. What?
So for you to the right of social democrats, there's only fascists? What the fuck, dude? Wait, first of all, I think social democrats can also entertain social fascism. Okay, that's number one. But number two, I didn't even fucking say that. I don't know where you derived this information from. Everyone has a little bit of a fascist dog in them, I think. Hitler particles. And you are literally the El Salvadorian president. You are the Salvadorian president. What do you mean globalism? Dude, one of the funniest things that I used to point to is when Nayib Bukele would say we're killing globalism, or when Viktor Orban does the same. They do the same thing. They go to CPAC and they talk about how like we're killing globalism in America. You're just global at that point. What the strange stuff. When I say I don't know what's happening, this is not an invitation for you to speculate. Oh my God. I'll never be able to stop people from speculating regardless though. Yeah, check your PC temps. You're getting DDoSed. Change your passwords. It's over. They're testing the CIA kill switch. All of that is real. I'm going to talk about the situation in Vermont in a second as well. I will cover that as well. Mohsen Modawi, a Palestinian-born green card holder and student at Columbia University, was apprehended at a regular immigration court date that he attended. Anyway, we'll talk about that in a second.
Is the president going to ask for him to be returned to the United States or not? Like, yes or no?
So first of all, it's not a question for me to answer, but I think that the assumption that underlies the question is what needs to be corrected, which is that there was no mistake that was made. He was sent. Like, so what? Let me ask you. So what do you think would happen to him if he came back to this country? As your understanding of immigration laws, what do you think would happen?
But I'm just asking.
Oh, it wasn't any court date. He was about to get citizenship. Jesus Christ.
It's important to know. You're asking a lot of questions. You're all asking a lot of questions about this, and you all seem to care about it a lot. So let's see if any of you have researched anything about this issue at all. Can anyone here tell me what would happen to the illegal alien from El Salvador if he came back to the United States? Does anyone here know? Does anyone want to guess? Any of you?
He could be with his family.
What? Any of you know the answer to the question? Legally, what would happen if he came back here? Does any of you know? Any of you?
He goes through the court system once again to get his asylum application processed. Yeah, and he lives with his family and continues to work at the union job that he had. You know, he's not illegal. He's quite literally not illegal. This distinction, the saddest state of affairs here is always that these guys recognize that the distinction between someone who is a documented non-citizen and an undocumented non-citizen is simply a piece of paperwork. And these guys refuse to entertain the notion of said paperwork ever being given out to people, assuming that if you are at any point, a non-citizen, naturalized or not, you are just not a real American and you can be deported and you should be deported. That's the point. That's it. That's it. So when people say like, why don't they come the right way? Like, this is a person who actually is going through the process. This is a person that was going through the process and went through the process and got protections against being deported. Asylum seekers are here legally. Do you understand? Asylum seekers are here legally. When people say, oh, no, don't care, they're non-citizens, like, they are here legally.
Do you really believe the Supreme Court?
I'm talking.
Do you really believe the Supreme Court doesn't?
I'm talking now.
Doesn't think he should be returned? Why was it unanimous?
You're done. Does any of you know the answer to the question? Does any of you? You've been talking about it for days. He would be arrested. Okay. He'd be put in confinement. He would be deported the second time to El Salvador again, because there's no withholding order for an alien who's a member of a foreign terrorist organization, number one. Number two is the gang that he's a member of doesn't exist in El Salvador anymore. So what you're asking for is to be deported twice. But additionally, if we chose to just pretend that the withholding order was real, he would be deported to a different country. So, for example, he could be deported to Egypt. So, I'm just trying to understand, is it your view?
No, that's not how that. Why would that happen? Like, this is psychotic. I don't.
In other words, you have to find a country that would be willing to take a MS-13 member from El Salvador. So I'm trying to understand from you all is
not an MS-13
So if he came
member.
back and under our laws, he was then deported to Egypt, or
if he had actually done something severe enough to be deported, then yes, he would not be deported to El Salvador. He would be deported to a different country. Having said that, he has done no crimes. So why would he ever be deported? The only thing that the courts have actually agreed on is that he should not be deported. He has done nothing that is deportable, and that he definitely should not be deported to El Salvador. That's what the courts have declared. And yet this administration, in direct violation of previous court orders, did deport him for no reason whatsoever, falsely claimed that he was MS-13, and also deported him to the one country that the previous court hearings had determined he should not be deported to
Somalia. Would you then be saying, great, I'm so glad that you deported him to another country? Is that what you'd all be saying? Like, do you understand our immigration laws at all? But
no, he doesn't understand. Well, he doesn't care about what the immigration laws are, obviously. That's not a thing that he gives a shit about.
The premise of your question, the gentlemen, the return guys, do you know the difference between a deportation order and a withholding order? Do you know the difference? Any of you, please. Do you?
Well, we're not in the government.
But you couldn't even spend 72 hours over the weekend learning the distinction, even though you've been writing and talking about it this whole time.
Steven, we're not going anywhere.
Please.
On the gold cards.
Just raise your hand. Does any of you know the difference between a deportation order and a withholding order?
Everyone, my name.
Speaking of deportation orders and withholding orders, we're going to talk about another horrifying case that just took place. Mohsen Madawi, a Palestinian-born green card holder and a student at Columbia University deeply involved in the pro-Palestinian activism, who had previously been interviewed by 60 Minutes, as a matter of fact, has been arrested by HSI agents in Vermont in the middle of his appointment to become a U.S. citizen. Remember, this is a naturalization appointment. Madawi grew up in a Palestinian refugee camp in the Israeli-occupied West Bank, where his childhood was shaped by the Second Intifada. He experienced significant personal losses, including the death of his best friend during a confrontation with Israeli soldiers when he was 10 years old. He later studied computer engineering at Birzeit University in Palestine from 2008 to 2014, before enrolling at Columbia University in New York, where he pursued studies in philosophy at the School of General Studies. At Columbia, he has organized protests and events addressing the Israeli genocide. Madawi has also emphasized the empathy and dialogue as pathways to justice and peace. He has participated in initiatives fostering cross-cultural understanding between Palestinians and Israelis on campus. Here is how he was. Here is what took place. Exclusive footage. Columbia student and Palestinian Mohsen Madawi, who is an American green card holder in the process of getting his naturalization, was just arrested in Colchester, Vermont. Now that we've seen Chris Van Hollen take action, strong action against this, my expectation is that Bernie Sanders does something similar here, by the way. I think he should. He absolutely should. This happened 4 minutes away from my office, only like an hour after Rameza's hearing in Burlington. Yeah, Rameza's hearing happened in Burlington, Vermont as well today. Here he is giving an interview to 60 Minutes. Let's take a look at what he had to say in this interview at 60 Minutes.
What was your initial reaction when you heard about the Hamas attack on October 7th?
I could not believe what my eyes were seeing, where I see Hamas members getting into settlements and so on. But also the first moment I saw that, I put my hand on my heart and I started praying, knowing that there will be a huge level of revenge from the Israelis. And I was praying that this will not be the result, because it would be disastrous.
The night of the rally, I believe someone in the crowd said something very anti-Jewish, not just anti-Israeli, but anti-Jewish.
Yes, this was as a walkout on November 9th. And a person who is not affiliated with Colombia, we've never seen him, we don't know who is this guy, comes down the stairs yelling, "Death to Jews." I was shocked, and I walked directly to the person and I told him, "You don't represent us because this is not something that we agree with." And directly what I've done, I took the megaphone and I gave a speech and I said,
this is why I said that these guys demonstrated phenomenal messaging discipline and showed, I think, movements for the future, okay? That this is exactly how you're supposed to keep an airtight protest. The protest marshals were incredible. From what I saw and to the with all the people that I talked to at these camps, these student encampments, they were incredible. They were literally perfect victims. They shouldn't be. They shouldn't have to be, but they still were. And the Biden administration still turned turned a blind eye to the insane police enforcement against these students and actively championed it. And then the Trump administration now is putting the final nail in the coffin. This is truly horrifying.
we here are conscious, educated students, and we know how to separate right from wrong. And what this guy has said.
This is the person that the Trump administration is working on deporting. He's a green card holder. He is a green card holder in the process of applying for citizenship. And they took him away from a court hearing to try and deport him. This is that person.
It is wrong. What this guy has said is clearly anti-Semitic against Jews.
Anti-Semitic.
To be anti-Semitic is unjust. And the fight for the freedom of Palestine and the fight against anti-Semitism go hand.
Citizenship interview, not a court hearing. Sorry. I mean, they took him away from the course, though, no?
Hand in hand, because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
It's horrible, man. It's horrifying.
My name is Becca White. I'm a state senator. I'm outside of a building in Colchester, Vermont. My friend Mosen is being handcuffed. He is inside the building here in Colchester. He is a Palestinian man. He is an Upper Valley resident. He is being detained, is our understanding, inside of 463 in Colchester.
They would deport him to an Israeli prison, by the way. That's where he would get deported to, or CCOT. I don't know.
He's inside the building. We don't know what side he's going to be coming out of the building. I'm here. I'm going to go live.
Columbia University protester
I'm going to stay live until we see him. We don't know where he is going or what's happening, but he is going to be. We don't know what's happening.
Looks like ICE database confirms detention of Columbia University anti-Israel activist Mohsen Madawi, although it lists his birthplace. This is a New York correspondent for Times of Israel, by the way. So just understand, like, the messaging on this, the way he's talking about it is going to be a little weird. Columbia University anti-Israel activist Mohsen Madawi, although it lists his birthplace as Jordan and he was born in the West Bank, the database does not have a category for the Palestinian territories. And a judge has now blocked Columbia University protester Mohsen Madawi from being removed from the United States.
He's been handcuffed. So the other gentleman went to the front. If you want to go to the front, so we'll stay here.
We saw this part.
Him with vehicle. Senator Becca White. There, this is Senator Becca White. I'm standing outside of the building again. I'm out front. While we were down in the back, they came and took him with vehicles. How many cars do you think took him?
Well, 4.
There were 4 vehicles. Again, this happened in Colchester, Vermont. Mosen has been taken. He has been detained. Supposedly, they're revoking his green card. He has been taken from Colchester. So there were 2 cars who parked and then another 2, and they came and took him. We've called the federal delegation. We've reached out to Bernie Sanders' office.
I spoke at length with Mosen last night, says Akila. This is a scoop for the Intercept article, which can someone send this to me without the paywall? Because I don't have the email. I guess I could put a fake email on here. Hold on. Okay, never mind. I passed it. I bypassed the paywall, which we will read in a second. But where is it? No, I got it. Akila spoke at length with Mosen last night. He said he was in good spirits. I asked what he thought would happen to him today. He said best case he hoped he'd come out a U.S. citizen, and in worst case the naturalization interview would turn into a honey trap for ICE. And that's precisely what happened. That is precisely what happened. A green card holder, Columbia University protest leader Mosen Madawi faced attacks from pro-Israel activists. Mosen Madawi arrived at the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services office in Colchester, Vermont on Monday. A Palestinian student at Columbia University. He hoped that after 10 years in the United States, he would pass the test to become a naturalized citizen. Instead, agents from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested him and began the process to deport him to the occupied West Bank. Madawi, a leader of the campus protest movement against Israel's war on Gaza, became yet another green card holder arrested and is facing removal. Mosen Madawi was unlawfully detained today for no reason other than his Palestinian identity, Madawi's attorney Luna Druby said in a statement to The Intercept. He came to this country hoping to be free to speak about the atrocities he had witnessed, only to be punished for such speech. Madawi's lawyers filed a habeas corpus petition on Monday morning challenging the legality of his detention, alleging the government was violating his statutory and due process rights by punishing him for speech related to Palestine and Israel. The filing said it appears that Madawi was facing deportation under the obscure provision used in recent cases that gives Secretary of State Marco Rubio the right to unilaterally declare immigrants as threats to American foreign policy. He was a green card holder, and this was a naturalization process for him. And it was a honey trap for illegal detention. Madawi was one of the leaders of the pro-Palestine students' protest movement until spring 2024, when he said he took a step back from the movement to focus on building bridges with Jewish and Israeli communities on campus. In December 2023, Madawi asked Columbia professor Shai Davide, a controversial pro-Israel figure at the school, to get coffee. The two met, but Madawi later said that Davide left in the middle of the coffee. Less than 2 months after the meeting, Shai Davide posted a video of Madawi to a Twitter thread characterizing him and other protest organizers as anti-Semitic and pro-Hamas. Davide did not immediately respond to a request for a comment. Since then, Madawi became a focus of the attacks from a member of Congress. I wonder who that member of Congress is, chat. Richie Torres, I suspect. Oh, never mind. It's not Richie Torres. Shocking. It's actually Representative Beth Van Dyne. I'm surprised. I'm surprised Richie Torres didn't get involved in this. And groups like Canary Mission and Beitar. With Donald Trump's inauguration, by the way, Shai Davide is not an American citizen, just so you know. With Donald Trump's inauguration, groups like Beitar and Canary Mission have been at the center of a push to place scrutiny on foreign students active in campus pro-Palestine movements. At Columbia, one behind-the-scenes push came from a WhatsApp group that included alumni and faculty who organized to get the students deported. Davide was a member of the group, though there's no indication he participated in talk of deportation, whether about Madawi or other students. Even before his friend and fellow Columbia activist Mahmoud Khalil was arrested by immigration authorities, Madawi asked university administrators to help him find a safe place to live so he would not be taken by ICE agents, according to emails reviewed by The Intercept. The school did not in response, Madawi said. Did nothing in response. They didn't do shit. After ICE abducted Khalil last month, Madawi sheltered in place for more than 3 weeks for fear of being picked up himself. Instead of taking him off the street, however, immigration authorities scheduled a citizenship test at the Colchester USCIS office and took Madawi into custody when he arrived. They literally set him up to fucking detain him. Now Madawi is facing an order to deport him to the occupied West Bank, where escalating attacks from both Israeli military and Jewish settlers have led to increased casualties among Palestinians. It's kind of a death sentence, Madawi said, because my people are being killed unjustly in an indiscriminate way. Bernie Sanders' office has also immediately released a statement. Sanders, Welch, Balint statement on Trump detaining Mosen Madawi. Earlier today, Mosen Madawi of White River Junction, Vermont, walked into an immigration office for what was supposed to be the final step in his citizenship process. Instead, he was arrested and removed in handcuffs by plainclothes armed individuals, their faces covered. These individuals refused to provide any information as to where he was being taken or what would happen to him. This is immoral, inhumane, and illegal. Mr. Madawi, a legal resident of the United States, must be afforded due process under the law and immediately released from detention. Beitar in January, I assume.
Thank you.
Yeah, Colombia jihadi visa holder. Oh, God. This is what Beitar posted about him.
For being here today in solidarity with Columbia University students and against Columbia University administration. Brothers and sisters, I say thank you as a Palestinian refugee born and raised in a refugee camp as a third generation. I say thank you as a child who witnessed his best friend getting killed, shot on the hands of an Israeli soldier in front of his eyes. Thank you. I say thank you as a child who lost his uncle when he was 11 years old. My uncle Thayer was shot in the head twice and in the shoulder once on the hands of IDF terrorist soldiers. Shame on them. I say thank you as a child who witnessed a strike, an explosion. And after this explosion, I saw people, 7 people, shattered into pieces in front of my eyes. I had to collect their body parts in my own hands, to collect fingers from the ground and peel off skin from the walls. Shame on you, Israel. I say thank you as a child who was shot in his leg when I was 15 years old on the hand of an Israeli soldier. And I come here today as a witness, as a living witness to the Israeli apartheid, to the Israeli oppression.
Why is Beitar posting W's? Because they're fucking freaks. Because they can get away with it. Because this administration is literally working alongside them. That's why they post this stuff.
Yeah. What happened? You called Sanders' office? Okay. I've called David, but I haven't heard back. So if you have anybody who you could call.
Call Ryan?
Yeah, call Ryan. Yeah. So this is like a serious situation. Our friend Mosen, I think this is the first thing like this that has happened in Vermont. I mean, this is outrageous. This is like I think this, I don't even know how to describe it. He was told that he was kidnapped. He was kidnapped. Yeah, so this is a constituent. This is a person. This is a great person. I'm not quite sure what to do now. We're in a weird position.
Thank you for your support over the years.
Should I post the video on Instagram? The video of him being taken on Instagram?
You can post that on there.
Okay.
I posted it on Twitter.
You posted it on Twitter?
As I did it for my journalist group.
Okay.
So yeah, you can post it.
Then.
We already covered this. Here are
Turning to Burlington right now, a
in
federal
Burlington rally outside the detention hearing for international student Rumeysa Öztürk.
Judge is hearing arguments for the release of Rumeysa Öztürk, the Tufts University student who was detained by ICE back in March. Öztürk was briefly held in Vermont before her transfer to a detention facility in Louisiana. So her lawyers filed a petition while she was still here. That's why the case is in Burlington today. NBC5's Charlotte Hancock joins us live right now outside of the courthouse. Charlotte, what's the latest on what's happening inside?
Yeah, so right now attorneys on both sides are still arguing on who has jurisdiction. They're also still arguing on where her appeal should have been filed. Acting U.S. Attorney Michael Drescher argued on behalf of immigration authorities, and he argues that the district court judge doesn't have jurisdiction to release Öztürk because her case is an immigration case. Öztürk has several lawyers in the courtroom today. They've argued that her arrest was unconstitutional, claiming that she does not need to be in prison to go through the removal process, and that she was never notified that her visa was revoked before her arrest. Her attorneys also claim the government used her arrest to send a message for people who speak out against the administration's beliefs. This has to do with an op-ed Öztürk wrote at Tufts University commending the war in Gaza. Today, activists from the Vermont Coalition for Palestine Liberation rallied for her release.
By the way, the State Department openly admitted, according to John Hudson's reporting from the Washington Post yesterday, that they have zero evidence for Hamas support. Like nothing. No evidence whatsoever. Nothing anti-Semitic was ever said. Yeah, State Department, zero evidence. John Hudson scoop for Washington Post. Days before mass immigration and customs agents detained Tufts University student Rumeysa Öztürk to deport her, the State Department determined that the Trump admin had not produced any evidence showing that she engaged in anti-Semitic activities or made public statements supporting terrorist organizations, as the government has alleged. Which, by the way, is still not this. I need people to understand something. Even if she had done this, which she did not do, but even if she had done this, that is not a reason for deportation. You cannot deport someone for this, okay? That is still not deportable. And I'm very worried that like a lot of people are hyper focusing on these perfect victims, and because like the administration is actively trying to deport these people that have not even done any wrongdoing beyond that, like that, I'm worried that the next time there is someone who has said something anti-Semitic, people are going to be like, well, this guy was anti-Semitic. It does not matter, okay? Saying anti-Semitic shit, saying things that the administration could perceive as anti-Semitic, or actually saying anti-Semitic shit is not a deportable offense. It is protected by the First Amendment. This is very important for people to understand. It is not a crime to be fucking anti-Semitic. It is inappropriate. I don't agree with it. It does not matter. You cannot deport someone for this, okay?
We're here today in solidarity with her, demanding her immediate release and reparations be paid to her, and all of her rights as a student, as a person in this country, be immediately reinstated, and a public apology issued by the Trump administration. Our democracy is at stake, and we will not be intimidated. We will not go back into the shadows. We will defend everybody under attack without exception.
Stop doing this. Stop. Oh. I hate when dumb fucks go, they're going to clip you for this. Like, okay, let them. Shut the fuck up. I don't care. It's the truth. Like,
Lawyers for Öztürk will continue to make their case this afternoon, and then the U.S. attorney will have an opportunity to respond. We'll continue to follow the latest and give you updates. Live in Burlington, I'm Charlotte Hancock, NBC 5 News.
I told you so. People actually thought this guy wasn't going to get deported. It's insane.
The fuck is this? This changes everything now?
Fucking obviously, yes. Of course he's gonna get deported. Let me see if I can. I'll watch a video about this real quick. Can be deported. Here we go.
Look, this is a very, very stunning move that's going to have repercussions for sure for all of
That's the goal.
the other international students who have been targeted by the Trump administration.
That's what I want them to do. If somebody is an international student and they're coming to the country and agitating and causing political distrust, like, I don't think that we owe it to the rest of the world to be a, open platform for you to come here and cause political dissent. It's ridiculous.
Cause political dissent.
It's ridiculous. Like, if you want to come here and complain about our politics, get the fuck out. Go back to your country. Yeah, any country would kick them out. Yeah, exactly. It's such a ridiculous premise that we need to have people that are not even citizens of this country. We're going to import them into this country and educate them so they can protest and complain in our country. Why do we have that? Why do we need this? Yeah, go complain in your own country. Exactly.
Free speech warrior, by the way. But I guess now, if you are declared as a non-citizen, as a green card holder with an American wife, anyone and everyone is declared non-citizens. The First Amendment is supposed to protect citizens and non-citizens on U.S. soil alike, whether they are documented or even undocumented, as a matter of fact. That's how it's worked. That's how it's always worked. That's how it's supposed to work. The notion that like, oh, well, these guys are stirring up shit, so they should have their green cards revoked is insane.
Their actions and demonstrations that they've been participating in under campuses all across the country. I'm just looking at my notes here because, as you mentioned, I'm just running out of court right now. But it's really, really important because Judge Jamie Comins has found that Mahmoud Khalil is removable under the Secretary of State Marco Rubio's assertion that his continued presence and his actions in the United States actually compromise foreign policy and political priorities. That's very stunning because that is actually the only thing that she ruled on today. She did not rule on the other allegations that were raised by DHS that he allegedly misrepresented information on his green card application.
None of that matters. It doesn't have to matter. Like, they can just deport him for whatever reason they want. That's what the rules say. No. I said this at the beginning.
No, that's not what the rules say. And then there's the second question, which is, even if that's what the rules said, is that appropriate? I don't think it is. The Trump administration is trying to write new rules right now, which Asmongold agrees with. Oh God, this commentary is so fucking stupid. I don't think I'm going to watch this whole thing, man. I'll lose my goddamn mind. I don't want to fucking watch this, okay? So fucking stupid.
Images released by the World Health Organization show the scale of the damage to Gaza's Al-Ahli hospital after yesterday's Israeli airstrike. Israel gave a 20-minute warning before the attack, which destroyed a 2-story laboratory and caused massive damage to the emergency department. It leaves just 2 other hospitals in Gaza's north, both operating at less than 20% of capacity.
We will need weeks to restore the place, and in some parts, maybe months. There is a major problem in the radiology and laboratory departments. The damaged equipment cannot be replaced because of the blockade imposed on the Strip.
Israel said without providing evidence that it had targeted a Hamas command and control center. Further south, the aftermath of another strike in Khan Yunis. Again, a warning to leave before a tented encampment for displaced people was bombed.
There were 150 tents here, 150 families. There are no tents left. There's nothing left. Our homes were destroyed. Our tents were destroyed. What will we do next? Where will we go?
All of this adding to the already grave concerns about Gaza's humanitarian situation.
For over 1 month now, no aid, no supply, no electricity, no a crust of bread has entered Gaza. Access is completely blocked by Israel. Food is running out while warehouses outside Gaza are full with food is rotting there because we can't get in.
The EU among those calling for an immediate ceasefire.
Yeah, remember when this is the same hospital that kickstarted the process of Israeli Hasbara, where everyone was yelling at me when I said, going along with BBC's initial reporting, that the Al-Ahli hospital was initially struck. The Al-Ahli hospital courtyard was initially struck by Israel. And then Israel just lied and offered no real evidence as to why it wasn't them. And we just kind of moved on from it. But that's where that's where the Biden administration basically platformed the term Hamas-run health ministry, which is now a part of the lexicon. Remember that. This was that hospital. Also remember that Israel had previously bombed the Al-Ahli hospital 2 days prior. They actually fucking hit it with artillery shells 2 days prior to the courtyard bombing. No, that's not. That was from the start. They were saying Hamas run from the casualty reports. Yes, but that was when the American administration said that it was Hamas-run health ministry numbers, and I do not believe them. That's what Biden said on the main stage.
The latest talks in Egypt breaking up without a breakthrough. Hamas, though, reported to be reviewing an Israeli proposal for 10 Israeli hostages to be released at the beginning of a 45-day pause. Major sticking points remain, but the proposal is reported to include the resumption of humanitarian aid into Gaza.
Well, the Irish trauma surgeon, Dr. Morgan McMonigal, recently got back from a 6-week humanitarian mission working in Gaza's Nasser hospital. He joins me now from Waterford. Good evening. What do you think the impact of the bombing of the Al-Ahli hospital will be?
The bombing is absolutely massive. And in fact, I was lucky enough to have visited Al-Ahli hospital in Gaza City while we spent time in Nasser hospital. And it was already struggling to regain a good foothold, in managing the people of the Gaza Strip, because you have to remember over 1.5 million people were internally displaced down to the south, to Khan Yunis and Rafah, and now they were, since the ceasefire started in January, they were slowly making their way back up north, and the hospitals were slowly starting to manage what we might call neglected surgical disease, conditions that people were unable to present to hospital with, like advanced cancers and diabetes and diabetic foot, as well as a lot of complex war-related tertiary and quaternary effects of the war from previous gunshot wounds and blasts. I was in Nasser hospital the night it was hit as well. And even though amazingly and miraculously only 2 people were killed, it is absolutely amazing that nobody else was injured, but the entire war was put out of action. Structurally, it was unsound for anybody to be in there other than construction workers. The very fact that since the blockade of aid and food and energy to desalinize the water.
Where's that fucking douchebag that you guys banned immediately? He said, like it or not, I'm glad that there are, they're deporting people. Dude, the irony is guys like this fantasize about China behaving in this way. They fantasize about North Korea behaving in this way. And when America is behaving in this way, they go, oh, I love it, actually. What the fuck do you mean foreigners are not allowed to cause disruption? Like, what are you talking about? What is the disruption? They were literally engaging in lawful activity. What the fuck is wrong with you? It is not illegal to protest, citizen or non-citizen alike, but these guys were also legal permanent residents anyway. What the hell are you talking about? Oh, you're not allowed to protest if you're a fucking non-citizen. This is a new thing. I hope you understand that. The thing that you're championing is not a country that I think is moving in the right direction. Fucking moron.
Medicines have been blocked since the 2nd of March. And even though NGOs did stockpile for a certain number of weeks.
It's additionally crazy. You know what's even crazier? This is happening at the behest of a foreign nation too. Like, these guys could be like, fuck America. America sucks dick. And they probably wouldn't get this level of fucking immigration enforcement. But God forbid you say fuck Israel, dude. This is not a country anymore. I'm sorry. We're not a fucking real nation. I don't know how the fuck this happened, but you're an absolute baboon if you don't recognize how this will inevitably harm you. Oh.
We could see every single day food and supplies were getting less and less and less quality, less quantity.
So what is available? I mean, what hospitals are available to people in Gaza?
Well, I believe before the current conflict, there was about 36 hospitals that were functioning. Now there's 22 that are only partially functioning. What I've been told from people who are on the ground, they're less than 20% functioning, most of these hospitals. So you can't take care of normal disease, normal conditions, never mind the conflict-related conditions, which are mostly blast-related. And the problem with a blast-related injury is it doesn't just affect one system or one part of the body, it affects all parts of the body and all teams. Even when I was there were specialists traveling from North Gaza and Gaza City down to Khan Yunis and down to Rafah. So they're spread out. So manpower is spread very thin on the ground, as well as a lack of supplies. So really it is more and more suffering on the ordinary people of Gaza. Yeah. And remember, keep in mind that about 50% of the population of Gaza is under 14 years of age.
Now, the Israelis say that this Al-Ahli hospital had a Hamas sort of control center in it somehow, and that's why they bombed it. Yeah, they said in the Nasser hospital where you were working that there was a Hamas leader using it as a base rather than being treated for wounds. What can you say about your time there in terms of what you saw? As you know, did you see Hamas there?
Oh, look, there was a time when every person with an Irish accent was a member of the IRA as well. I mean, as a humanitarian, I'm impartial and I'm neutral. But let's pretend for a moment there was a risk of a terrorist person or people being there. You still don't bomb healthcare facilities. And it goes against the Rome Statute of 1998. And motive is irrelevant. Motive is absolutely irrelevant. It's the intent to destroy a healthcare facility, regardless of what you think your motive might be. That goes against all international and humanitarian law.
Dr. McMonagle, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm now standing in the courtyard of Al-Ahli Hospital in northern central Gaza Strip, where the Israeli fighter jets have targeted this place, resulted in massive devastation. Worth mentioning is that this is not the first time the hospital has been targeted. This is the second time. The first was on October the 17th, 2023, resulted in an Israeli massacre. At least 500 civilians have been killed in the first attack. The second was yesterday. We can clearly see the scale of devastation and the crater created by the Israeli missile dropped on this surgical operation unit.
We were receiving treatment and asleep in the hospital when suddenly they told everyone to evacuate at around 2 a.m. We started running with nowhere to go. We don't know where to go if hospitals are unsafe.
We can clearly see that this is the emergency unit. We can see the beds are empty right now. We can see the broken glasses due to the brutal attack No patients are being received after the Israeli military rendered out the only barely functional, it was once a barely only functional hospital in northern Gaza Strip. Now it got out of service and it is right now empty. We can also see the scale of devastation inflicted on the other part of the emergency unit.
They struck the hospital at exactly 8 minutes past 2. There's nothing to target here, as you can see. There's an ICU unit behind me, and then there's the emergency triage area, and this is the only hospital we had in the area.
The hospital is located close to Al-Shijaiya neighborhood, which is witnessing a ground invasion by the Israeli occupation forces. The situation is getting much more catastrophic in the light of the ongoing Israeli targeting of healthcare facilities and rendering them out.
If you say this is fucked up and unconscionable and correctly say that this is a genocide, the American government can just disappear you and send you to a fucking concentration camp in El Salvador, by the way. And people like Asmongold think this is appropriate. Monsters, dude. Actual fucking monsters. If you are a legal permanent resident, if you got a green card, you're about to fucking apply. You're about to get your citizenship the day. You're about to become a naturalized citizen. The American government can just come and kidnap you. Asmongold is officially in the final stage of becoming a fucking roach. Disgusting. When I hear shit like that, it's just like that is so much worse than any kind of like, oh, the titties are not big enough in video games nonsense that he engages in. Okay? Disgusting.
Out of service, and people will have no other place to get medical treatment after the ongoing Israeli attacks. Ibrahim Khalili, Al Jazeera, Gaza City, Palestine.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.
Genuinely, what happens? Should American fascism eventually dissipate? How we hold accountable to those reporters? I don't know, man. I don't even know how to begin to think about American fascism ending, since it seems impossible to combat. Recall the weeks of hand-wringing about some U.S. media assuming correctly that the entity dropping 99.9% of the bombs on Gaza bombed the Al Ahli hospital courtyard. 543 days and 150 plus attacks on medical facilities later, I can't think of a fake media scandal that has aged worse. According to the New York Times, 1,500 Hamas PIJ rockets landed in Israel in the first 3 months of the conflict and killed 12 people, but one errant PIJ rocket landed in Gaza and killed 250 plus. Some really bad luck, I guess. Nothing else to see here. Move on. Yeah. After said fake scandal, almost every outlet immediately added the pejorative qualifier, according to the Hamas-run health ministry, to discredit the increasingly gruesome and obscene body counts. This was essential to suppressing opposition to the war, in air quotes, in its early weeks. Notice how the cumulative mentions of Hamas-run health ministry skyrocket after the Al Ahli Arab hospital bombing, with no mention, of course, that the Hamas-run health ministry figures had been used for years by the U.S. State Department, Human Rights Watch, and Israeli intelligence. You are fucking disgusting. Go back to Istanbul if you don't like it. Your leftist views and identity politics is 98% of what's wrong. The rest is China destroying... What? Aw. I couldn't read the whole thing. It's so annoying. Guys, stop banning these fucking douchebags while I'm in the process of fucking reading what they're saying, okay? Please. What is the username? Here, I'm unbanning them. You are fucking disgusting. Go back to fucking Istanbul if you don't like it. Your leftist views and identity politics is 98% of what's wrong. The rest is China destroying us from within. Can you even explain fascism, or are you just listening to your brainwashing tactics? I love that this guy doesn't understand that China is not destroying the United States of America. It's the people that you probably voted for and you like that is actively dismantling the United States of America. Whether it be our due process, whether it be our First Amendment protections. It's not China doing that. It's Donald Trump doing that. It's also Donald Trump working at the behest of those very same billionaires that have undermined every aspect of American existence up until this very moment. But of course, you will never understand that because you're laser focused on dumb fuck nonsense like identity politics is what's ruining this country. Yeah. It's actually trans people and undocumented migrants that is the reason why your rent is unaffordable and seemingly keeps going up. It's trans people and undocumented migrants that is the reason why you can't get a fucking job where you can actually, with a single with a single wage, be able to pay for rent, maybe even get a wife one day, maybe have some children one day. It's actually trans people and undocumented immigrants. That's the reason why you will never be able to retire at a reasonable age. Perhaps it's not that, and people are just simply moving you in that direction because they know you're stupid enough to you're stupid enough to dive into that bait head first every single fucking time. There's perhaps no funnier moment where you can be complaining about this sort of shit while also simultaneously be like, you're disgusting, go back to your own country. I'm an American citizen, by the way. Okay? So, sucks to suck, dumb fuck. But the idea where you're like, right, they've been destroying our country since the 90s when Clinton brought it into the WTO. Okay, dude. Nobody forced American capital to move to China for manufacturing. Okay? They did that. They actually designed it so that they could do that. And no, China joining the World Trade Organization happened decades after what you're talking about. What you're doing here is talking about NAFTA and mistaken NAFTA for other free trade agreements. Not that it matters. It doesn't fucking matter because every single person that engaged in this shit did it for one reason and one reason only, to put profits over the interests of American people. But you think it's a Democrat thing. It's not just a Democrat thing. It's a Democrat and Republican thing. Okay? That's the difference. But notice what is not notice who is not responsible for any of this? The fucking woke identity politics that seemingly occupies a big chunk of your fucking mind. So dumb.
Story will continue in.
Can you imagine this kind of coverage? I mean, I know we say this all the time, but like against Israel, in spite of this, think about how much people have soured on Israel, regardless of the fact that the media never covers it like this. It's shocking to see 60 Minutes critically cover a foreign power lasered 9 children in a fucking in a playground. Israel does it on a daily basis, and yet I thought it was totally fucking appropriate. Or at least they dance around the issue pretty aggressively.
In a moment.
You seem to have a real hatred of Vladimir Putin.
Oh, don't support Ukraine? Is that a sign we shouldn't support Ukraine either? Wait, what? What a terrible way to make an assertion over a totally separate country. First of all, what's happening to Ukraine is unironically what has happened to other global South countries in general. Ukraine's economy was basically akin to a fucking global South developing nation economy even before the invasion. Is this mega communism? Yeah. Make up your own goddamn mind. What do you mean? I've talked about this before. The reasons as to why a lot of countries outside of the sphere of American influence actually look to Russia as the good side in this conflict is because they see this action as Russia penetrating through the global hegemonic superpower status that America has. So anyone and everyone that fucking fights back against that, they see as a good thing. Okay, that's it. That's it. They understandably see America as the big bad, and they look to Russia as a country that is fighting against the big bad, and therefore is, at least for the time being, their ally. Okay? If you're confused by why there's so many countries that actually are pro-Russia in this process, that's where it comes from. That's it. In terms of Russian action in Ukraine, as a state, as the regional power, Russia has responsibilities. And my assessment is that they completely fucking cast aside their responsibilities by intervening and illegally invading and occupying Ukraine. They knew that Ukraine was not going to join NATO, and yet they still invaded Ukraine. It was a spectacular failure. That's it. Now Donald Trump is doing everything in his power to at least pack this up because in his mind, he thinks like intervention in Ukraine that predated the invasion is all lib shit. He thinks personally that this is just like liberal nonsense, but I don't know. I don't know how we would ever pack this up without looking outright servile to Russian interests in a way that is impossible to avoid, impossible to turn a blind eye to. Like he is just, the only way to end this is if you just say, look, you've had too many casualties. You have to literally listen to any and all demands that Russia makes. We are not offering you any more support as the United States of America, and that's it. Yeah, Eastern Ukraine is now Russian territory. We recognize it, blah, blah, blah, blah, blah. And some analysts do think that that is what's going to happen. I am not in the prediction game when it comes to Ukraine, as you guys know. Been there, done that. Not the best idea. Okay, but having said that, I don't think that Vladimir Putin is going to behave in a reasonable manner here. He has not so far, and I don't think there's any reason for him to behave in a reasonable manner because he understands that like Trump also has internal pressure to end this, and he understands the resentment that Trump has towards Zelensky. So he's using that to his advantage. That's why even after all of this shit, even after all of the ceasefire negotiations and yada, yada, yada, what did Vladimir Putin do? He kept fucking pummeling. He keeps blowing up different parts of Ukraine because seemingly he's the one who wants to delay the ceasefire process. Ironically enough, it was initially Zelensky that wanted to delay it because that was incredibly fucking stupid, for the record. But it's clear that Vladimir Putin also is not exactly on board with a ceasefire negotiation either. No.
I think without the United States, we will suffer great losses.
Russia can't have been sure that Ukraine would never join NATO, given that NATO kept breaking promises by expanding eastwards. Last thing Putin wants is for him to die. Ukraine to join, and all Russians know him as the person who allowed NATO back into Russia in a corner, not defending the invasion, just the point that Ukraine never joining NATO. Yeah, no, Ukraine was never joining NATO. If Russia, I'm sorry, and for the record, I think Vladimir Putin knew that as well. I think he just wanted to leave a mark like on his way out before he dies. I think he wanted to be the guy who took back parts of Russian Empire territory. I think even NATO in and of itself is just like part of the equation. I think it was a legacy move. Because if you want to stop Ukraine from joining NATO, the best possible thing you can do is what the Russians were doing in terms of trade negotiations, which is to have decent relations with trade partners in Europe and keep focusing on that.
Human is our destiny.
It's so funny because, like, with the exception of America and the American State Department, zero people thought that Russia would invade Ukraine. Like, it's really interesting to have this conversation in America with an audience that primarily consumes American news. Because if you were the only people on the planet that were like, oh, this is definitely happening. Ukrainians did not think it was happening. Russians did not think it was happening. Nobody thought it was happening. The only people that knew it was happening as a certainty was Western intelligence and Vladimir Putin. Putin and the libs, yeah. What did they know? So, you know, there are a lot. I mean, Zelensky certainly didn't think it was happening. You're right on that. Leading diplomats that have met Putin before and during the war always said he pulls out maps of Katerina the Great. He definitely wants to be in the history books. I mean, I think he likes, he's a Duginist, he's a follower of Duginist thought. Like, I don't think that's lib shit to assume. I think that there is a validity to that, you know. Only Tim Pool knew? Yeah. We saw them doing drills by Ukraine's border. Yeah, they did that every year. That's the difference. They did that every year and then scaled it back. Yeah, so much so that Zelensky was telling Western leaders to chill out, chill the fuck out with this kind of statement. Look, I've talked to Ukrainians who have very interesting points of view on this. I don't even want to bring it up, but as a Ukrainian, it was pretty obvious they will invade. I moved from Ukraine years before that, specifically because my family who are from the East were always thinking it's only a matter of when. I mean, yeah, if you moved from the East, then you most likely were already in an area where there was constant back and forth. At least you were close in proximity to, I assume, the back and forth that was happening inside of Ukrainian borders already in violation of the Minsk agreements. Zelensky said so to not stress Russia to prevent conflict. Yes, this is what I have also heard from Ukrainians in general, to be like the unique position that some Ukrainians have where they're like, oh, no, hi, what's happening? Oh, hello? What? Oh, that's crazy. Okay, this is, what are you doing? What the hell? What are you doing? What is happening? That's crazy. She's like, this is my stream now, please. Oh, wow, that was country. Ukrainians as well have their own version of cranks and insane takes, a litany of insane takes. And one of the most insane takes that I have seen in this process was the position of Ukrainians that also think that this war was directly a consequence of the Biden administration. They hate Biden. They don't like Trump either. They like Zelensky, but they also think Biden goaded Russia into invading by falsely claiming that Russia would invade. Like basically threatening, basically forcing Russia's hand to invade, because otherwise he would look like a weak and feckless, powerless leader. I think it's a bit of a crank take. I just think it's funny that is what I've... So Russia is the victim? No, they hate Russia. Also what makes it interesting is that they're not exactly fond of Vladimir Putin either.
By giving us weapons.
Russia shipped trains full of tanks for many months to that border before the invasion. Yeah, but they've done that before. That's the point. I don't even agree with that take, for the record. My take on it is I think Vladimir Putin wanted to have a long-lasting legacy. The NATO fears are marketing. When you do an unjustifiable action like this as a state, you have a multifaceted front of propaganda. For the people that are hopped up on hyper-nationalist sentiment, you tell them Ukrainians and Russians are one people. There's no such thing as Ukraine, right? For people who care about geopolitical conflict or whatever, you tell them, well, you know, NATO is a real concern. For people who still believe that Russia is a anti-Nazi nation, you say, oh, we're denazifying Ukraine. All of these are bullshit answers. Some of these have more validity than others. It's the same dynamic in America. When America invades a country, liberals want to hear about democratization. For the Republicans, when you're invading a country, invading a foreign nation like a Muslim nation, you just go, yeah, they're barbaric monsters that need to be fucking killed. Okay? But for the liberals, they need an extra oomph. That's why you have to say, oh, we're liberating women. Do you understand? That's what it is. Or gays. Like liberals hear about liberating the gays, liberating them from their lives, of course, with American bombs. Security state weirdos are still touting Vietnam-era domino theory about how the fall of Ukraine will be the fall of Europe when Putin is having trouble just holding on to the eastern flank of Ukraine. All of this is marketing by the West. I agree. What is the anti-Nazi counterpoint? What do you mean? The Russian military has fucking Nazi divisions as well. So does the American military. The notion that like a country's line of defense features neo-Nazi elements within it is a reason to be an even bigger Nazi is psychotic. That's not how anything works. What do you mean? That's the same. It's funny because that's what Israel claimed as well. Like that's the Israel statement. Israel was like, oh, Hamas are Nazis. They're terrorists. They are Nazi terror. They are doing Nazi terror. We have to kill them. Like, okay, I guess that's what Israel's doing too. They're denazifying. Like they're not. That's why I say it's fucking bullshit. The denazification narrative is just fucking bullshit. Especially because you know what happens when you invade a country that already has a nascent neo-Nazi movement? It's not surprising, but those neo-Nazi movements become the emancipators, the great liberators. They get way more power than they ever would have beforehand. When a larger irredentist power invades your nation, a nation that is built around the national identity of not being Russian, okay? Yeah, of course the fucking neo-Nazis are going to be the best game in town all of a sudden. You've just basically proven all of their anger and resentment. There's no denazification of sorts. It's only a Nazification once that happens. Did you see Peter Korotov on Chapo? I did. It was a great interview.
600-mile front is largely frozen. World War I...
That goes against the argument, though. If your strongest defenses are Nazis, your country is already Nazified. No, that's not how this works. Especially not how it works when you have like internal conflict against neo-Nazi movements that are growing, that are born out of paramilitary groups initially, or like football hooligans that become paramilitary security groups that then find themselves within the ranks of your internal security or your military. That's how Azov came to be. Trump hated this interview. He wants 60 Minutes to lose their license over this. That's amazing. Zelensky is Jewish. Why would neo-Nazis elect them? Because not everyone is a fucking neo-Nazi, dude. What are you talking about? Is your argument that there are no Nazi battalions? Because if that's your argument, you're also wrong. Also, dude, don't even get me started on Azov Battalion, because a lot of people get mad at me. Like, people get mad at me for this. Like, okay, first of all, America's a white supremacist nation. We elected Barack Obama twice, okay? Do you think America is not a white supremacist nation? You know, that doesn't mean anything. And secondly, the Azov Battalion stuff is even funnier because don't they have like a fucking rabbi or something in the battalion as well? I saw a photo of a dude from Azov Battalion with a fucking, I don't know, this probably was fake, but like the Azov Battalion and other like neo-Nazi elements within Ukrainian, the Ukrainian forces are also very pro-NATO and also very pro-Israel too simultaneously. It's like weird as fuck. So it's impossible. It's impossible to fully comprehend what's going on there. No, that was a photo of Azov Battalion fighter greeting Jewish rabbi in the city of Uman on Jewish holiday. No. The rabbi is real. I was thinking of a different photo that I think was probably fake. On the crying wall. No, the rabbi one is real. They call him the rabbi. Yeah, I'd say the 2019 parliamentary election showed pretty much no popularity for the far-right parties. They got less than 1% representation there, maybe on paramilitary forces, but sending Nazis to die is not the worst idea ever. No, the irony, of course, is that there's different factions within Ukrainian politics, some of which have been completely eroded. Like the pro-Russian factions have either A, been eroded due to Russia's actions, or B, been eroded by force. But then there's also, then you got the liberals, you got the pro-NATO liberals, then you got the fucking nationalists, like hyper-nationalists, ultra-nationalists. I think that, I suspect that the nationalists would probably be more popular than they ever have been, and maybe even more popular than Zelensky. I don't know. I haven't looked at the latest polls, but that certainly wasn't the case before this invasion.
What does a just peace look like to you?
I'm kidding when I say this. If Russia had that kind of power, okay, if they magically were able to, boom, immediately overtake Ukraine, permanently militarily occupy Ukraine, and then move their forces into Poland, I'm not kidding when I say this. I think America wouldn't do anything until it reached like Germany, okay? I think at that point, America would be entertaining two options. It's like, do we care about the Baltic states? Do we care about Eastern Europe? Like, do we actually care about Eastern Europe? Do we want to defend our NATO countries? Or can we get away with undermining the entire basis for NATO's existence? I'm serious. I think they wouldn't do shit until it touched Western Europe. I legitimately think they would just be like, all right, sorry, big dog, you're on your own. We can't do a complete nuclear annihilation. Now, of course, that's not a instance to worry about, because Russia doesn't have that kind of fucking power. Russia does not have enough power to even go beyond the positions that they've dug themselves into in Eastern Ukraine. The U.S. would defend Central and Northern Europe. I include Poland in that, but those countries are strong enough to defend themselves, bad terrain, etc. No way the Russians could do that. Yeah, no, I think that the thing that's stopping all of this from happening is that Russia doesn't have that kind of power. I agree on that. They can't take Ukraine. What is this? Poland is much stronger than before. East Germany is so fucking different than Western Germany, come to think about it. Anyway, that's not happening regardless. I'm just simply saying that. I'm simply stating that, like, for America to actually treat Adolf Hitler like Adolf Hitler, they would have to do a lot more. They would have to do a lot more than fucking Ukraine. I still believe that they would. If Russia had the power, which they don't, but if they had the power, I still believe that they would just like they're not. I don't see America going to war to defend, fucking Lithuania. You know what I mean? Like, we are a very selfish country, chatters. Do you understand? Like, when I say we're a very selfish country, this is kind of what I mean. It's like, oh no, Estonia falling into the hands of Russia. The only reason why they would ever fucking entertain that is because that would mean NATO is nothing. They would basically say, like, NATO, like being able to invade a NATO nation and not triggering Article 5 would mean that, like, there's no real NATO security cooperation there beyond giving money or beyond these countries basically purchasing our weapons. It depends if the Balkans say thank you. Yeah, they would have like the leadership of fucking Estonia in the White House being like, have you said thank you? Have you said thank you? My Egyptian dad used to joke and say, whoever uses America as cover is naked. Yeah. What is happening right now? No. Don't look at me like that. What? What? This is so crazy. What? You want to go outside? You want to go outside? I'm going to have to let her out. Everyone came to the aid of the U.S., who was the only country to invoke Article 5. So if the U.S. doesn't come to else's aid, it just proves how cooked the U.S. is. Wait, what? Yeah. What do you mean everyone came to the aid of the United States?
The arrest over...
Suspect arrested after alleged arson at Pennsylvania governor's house. This happened overnight. 100% would trigger Serbia as a Russian proxy state to try and take Balkan as well. Putin is extremely upset that Yugoslavia never wanted to be a part of the Soviets. Yeah. Where's your butler / dog sitter? My dad? I don't know. He's probably sleeping.
Overnight, the suspect charged with setting fire to the home of Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who was there with his family at the time. Our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky, is in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, with the latest. Good morning to you, Aaron.
And good morning to you, Robin. You can see the yellow tape, the boarded up windows. That's the spot where police say the arsonist broke glass and hurled a Molotov cocktail while the governor and his family were asleep inside.
This morning, an arrest after police say an arsonist tried to kill Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro by setting fire to his official residence. The fire blackened damage evident, part of the mansion left uninhabitable.
This type of violence is not okay. This kind of violence is becoming far too common in our society. And I don't give a damn if it's coming from one particular side or the other.
The governor and his family were gathered Saturday evening with 24 others celebrating the first night of Passover. Shapiro sharing this photo of his Seder plate. At 2 a.m., that very room was engulfed in fire.
The governor's residence putting a large fire in the dining room on the first floor. They can see fire out the windows.
The governor and his family were asleep inside, police rushing in to rouse them.
State troopers assigned to our detail woke us up and told us we had an emergency and needed to leave immediately.
Authorities now charging 38-year-old Cody Balmer of Harrisburg with aggravated arson, attempted murder, and terrorism.
He clearly had a plan. He was very methodical in his approach, without a lot of hurry.
This is the part of the fence the suspect breached to make his way inside the governor's residence, where he set the fire with an incendiary device. Investigators cut away this part of the fence so they could do DNA testing. No one was injured, but the attack left the governor, who has 4 children.
I don't understand who the fuck has smoke for Josh Shapiro of all fucking people. You know what I mean? He's just out of his mind, right? Like, this dude.
Shaken.
Lori and I are overwhelmed by the prayers.
Like, also, I did find out that he also had a hammer and he had a plan to kill him with a hammer, which I think is I guess becoming like the fashionable weapon to try and assassinate Democrats and Democratic leadership in general. Very strange choice. David DePipe also famously had a hammer as well and wanted to kill Nancy Pelosi with a hammer, and tried to kill Paul Pelosi with a hammer. His mom already came out and said he went off his medication. The cops refused to help when she called them. Yeah, I saw that too. I just don't understand why you would have this much smoke unless you're just like a totally insane person. He admitted that he would have used a hammer to kill him. Didn't even try to say he used a hammer to break in or something. Yeah. No, I saw it. Nah, there's plenty of people who would have this kind of smoke. For Josh Shapiro? Wait, are you being for real or not? I can't tell. No, the hammer thing is real. That is literally real. David DePipe also used a hammer against Paul Pelosi.
And the messages of support that we've received from all across Pennsylvania and all across the United States.
Police say this.
And before people say, "Oh, is this related to the fucking person who Josh Shapiro refused to prosecute or whatever, that they ruled a suicide even though she was stabbed in the back of the head 20 times?" No, I don't think so. I don't think that there's any like real logical through line here for anything. It just probably is a dude off his meds who wanted to who wanted to make a name for himself, maybe, or just like for no real reason.
Suspect confessed and told them he would have.
Wait, you blame the one northern?
Okay. Let's kill him. Let's kill this guy. Let's beat him to death with hammers.
That's the reason why you think. Okay, stop. Don't even joke about this. Okay. Suspect in arson at Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's residence has been denied bail. A man who allegedly scaled an iron security fence in the middle of the night, eluded police and set fire to the Pennsylvania governor's mansion, was denied bail on Monday as he faced charges including attempted homicide, terrorism, and arson. Cody Balmer spoke with a public defender at times as he appeared in court late Monday afternoon after being released from a hospital where he was taken after an unrelated medical event. Balmer, 38, told the police he had planned to beat Governor Josh Shapiro with a small sledgehammer if he encountered him after breaking into the building, according to court documents. A motive for the attack, including whether it had anything to do with Shapiro's politics or religious beliefs, wasn't immediately clear. A man who allegedly scaled an iron security fence in the middle of the night eluded police and set fire to the PA governor's mansion and was in police custody at a hospital after an unrelated medical event, state police said on Monday. By the way, this is another ultimate, like, we had him on our radar moment where they didn't just have him on their radar. They literally had him in custody, it seems. Cody Balmer told police he had planned to beat Governor Josh Shapiro with a small sledgehammer if he encountered him after breaking into the building. Again, insane to just like admit that is your intent. Your intent was to literally use a sledgehammer that you brought with you. No plausible deniability whatsoever. Just straight up, he was like, "Hey, by the way, this hammer, I wasn't using this hammer to break in. I was using this hammer to break his skull if I were to find him. Let the record show that I had intent to murder the governor of the state," which is crazy. All right. He was being treated at a hospital, which police say was not connected to this incident or the arrest. A motive for the attack, including whether it had anything to do with Shapiro. Balmer's mother told the Associated Press on Monday that she had tried in recent days to get him assistance for his mental health issues, but nobody would help. She said her son had bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. The AP was not able to verify that information. Why did they say that? He wasn't taking his medicine, and that's all I want to say, Christy Balmer said, speaking at the family home in Harrisburg. The fire caused significant damage and forced Shapiro and his family and guests, including other relatives, to evacuate the building early Sunday. The residence, built in 1968, did not have sprinklers. Harrisburg Fire Chief Brian Enterline said, "That's crazy that the governor's mansion did not have fire code. How the fuck does that happen?" Shapiro said he, his wife, and the 4 children, 2 dogs, and another family had celebrated Jewish holiday Passover in that very room Saturday night. It was built in the 1800s, dog. Yeah, but like, aren't you supposed to do that? Like, aren't you supposed to have some kind of fucking fire code regardless? Like, even if there are no sprinklers? Anyway, they were awakened by state troopers pounding on their door. They fled and the firefighters extinguished the fire. Balmer had walked an hour from his home to the governor's residence. Damn, walkable cities? Yo, Pennsylvania's like that? Shit, man, I'm sorry. Pennsylvania, I take it back. That is a remarkably walkable infrastructure. The fact that someone could just walk from their house to the governor's residence like that, no, it's not. PA is not like that. Lamau, I mean, maybe the place where they were at, where the governor's mansion is. Our cities are much older than cars, so yeah, they're very walkable. Yeah, I mean, I know Philadelphia is walkable, very walkable. It is in the big old cities. The chatters are dumb suburbanites. I'm from PA. He was on the side of a highway the whole time, guaranteed. Some parts of PA are walkable, like Pittsburgh or Harrisburg. Anyway, let's continue. He admitted to harboring hatred towards Governor Shapiro in a police interview. Wow. Shocking. According to a police affidavit that did not expand on that point. Afterwards, he returned home, where police said they later found clothing he wore at the time and a small sledgehammer. Balmer turned himself in at the state police headquarters after confessing to a woman he had formerly had a relationship with and asking her to call the police, which she did, the affidavit said. Authorities did not say whether he has a lawyer. He's expected to be arraigned once he is released from the hospital. Shapiro says he's unbowed. Hours after the fire, emotional Shapiro, who's viewed as a potential White House contender. Oh, God. Okay. When we were in the state dining room last night, we told the story of Passover, the exodus of Jews from slavery in Egypt and freedom. I refuse to be trapped by the bondage that someone attempts to put on me by attacking us as they did here last night. I refuse to let anyone who had evil intentions like that stop me from doing the work that I love. Police say suspect hopped security fence, forcibly entered the residence. Balmer had faced criminal charges over the past decade, including simple assault, theft, and forgery. According to online court records, he had also financial problems in recent years, including a lender filing for foreclosure on a modest Harrisburg house he owned in 2022 over missed mortgage payments. Court records show a deed transfer shows Balmer sold the house for $60,000 last September to settle the debt. He's the father of at least 3 children, with 2 women filing court complaints seeking child custody agreements in 2012 and 2023. Fire badly damaged a large room. President Donald Trump told reporters Monday that Balmer did not appear to be a fan of his either. Trump. The attacker basically wasn't a fan of anybody, he said. And certainly, a thing like that cannot be allowed to happen. Okay, I don't even know what the situation is, but I could see him being, he's a radical centrist. The guy who arsoned the Pennsylvania governor's mansion was brainwashed by the most toxic political force in America, centrism. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, yes. Oh, no, but also, oh, yes. Oh, my God. Oh, we are such a fucked country, bro. No, you can't have a Yang ganger doing arson. What is going on, bro? That's 2020. Yeah, it's been years, but it's funny that he was a both sides have really bad ideas kind of guy. Oh my God. You guys say pre-watched, but if you were to ask me, I would have thought this guy was like a fucking, I would have thought this dude was like, maybe like an anarchist or something. Like, no disrespect, like who has deep and severe mental issues. I would have never thought it would be a Yang ganger with deep and severe mental issues. That is, wow. Especially because of his target. Like, who the fuck has this level of smoke for Josh Shapiro? You know what I mean? Luigi also was a bit of a centrist himself. What the fuck? What is this? This you just now? Yeah, that got bro pussy wet. Saying an arsonist may be an anarchist, the most obvious guess you could make. Yeah, that was what I initially thought. Especially because, like, I feel like if you're in the game of doing like a political assassination, right? Like, making Josh Shapiro your target seems very much like making Josh Shapiro your target of political assassination seems to me like you're not in the business of serious big stuff, right? You're not like, even if it was someone like Fetterman, there's a clear-cut motive that I could ascribe to, Whereas like Josh Shapiro personally is just like a wild choice. Do you understand what I mean by that? Because like he was briefly entertained as a VP candidate choice and was like, sure, pro-Israel, but fucking who wasn't? You know what I mean? He wasn't like people made hay over the thing that he wrote when he was in high school. But I feel like the average Democrat has the exact same opinions about Gaza. So it's not like he had anything beyond the isn't it his governor? Yeah, but governors are usually some of the more popular political figures in general. In spite of Josh Shapiro's popularity diminishing, I feel like governors themselves are not exactly in the crosshairs. Like, usually they are more popular and even go above partisan politics in general, which is why it makes sense that he would be a fucking it would be a centrist. I guess, yeah. It was probably a proximity play. Yeah. They've been targets. See Gretch? Yes. Gretchen Whitmer is a perfect example of like a governor that was gaining national prominence due to her actions during a time of unprecedented volatility during COVID. And even then, there was a lot of pushing in that direction from, let's just say, federal law enforcement agencies in terms of organizing and getting people together to take action, if you know what I mean. Yeah, speaking of Gretchen Whitmer, incredible.
Damn, this guy's good.